So first of all, happy Thyroid Awareness Week, International Thyroid Awareness Week. I hope you've been seeing our social media posts and things like that, and hopefully they've been helpful. So I'm glad that you could find the time to attend today, and I hope you find it really interesting. We've got some amazing speakers on very different topics this year, because I thought it might be a good idea to learn a few things, new things that perhaps you haven't tried before, and to learn about new innovative treatments that are coming up in the UK. So first of all, just a couple of points about the webinar. Okay, let me get rid of that. Hopefully there won't be any glitches. I'm still not very used to Teams. I only use it about once or twice a year, so I apologise in advance if there are any glitches about me trying to get the speakers in or answering questions or anything like that. Heidi's going to help with the questions as well. So the questions you can put into the chat if you have any, and if we don't get round to it, then I'll answer them probably next week. This webinar is being filmed, so if you prefer not to be filmed, please turn your video off. But I see that everybody so far has done that already, unless it was done automatically by Teams, which I didn't think I did that, but I may have done. The recording will be edited at some point and then put onto our YouTube channel, and all attendees will be sent a link to the video on YouTube. And then you can watch it at your leisure if you missed any of it. Everybody's been muted for the time being, so that it doesn't interfere with the talks. I know children are off school this week, and so we can't help it if they need to come into your space today. So it's best if you're muted. There will be a short amount of time after some speakers for those of you who have questions to that particular speaker. But if we run out of time, then we can organise to answer the questions later. For those of you who have not been aware of us, Thyroid UK is here to provide information and resources to promote effective diagnosis and appropriate treatment for people with both diagnosed and undiagnosed thyroid disorders in the UK. We've been campaigning now for a very long time about access to T3, liothyronine, and it's been very up and down, and it's a little bit down at the moment. I'm still getting a lot of people that are saying they either cannot access it at all because their GP doesn't believe in it, or the ICB won't pay for it, or you won't be able to get a referral to an endocrinologist, which is what you need to be able to access it. Unfortunately, myself and other thyroid charities have had communications with NHS England about their latest guidance. It is not simple dealing with them, and they are not listening to us at the moment. The problem with the guidance is that one set of guidance says it can't be prescribed, and the other set of guidance says that it can be prescribed by an endocrinologist. Unfortunately, the one that says it can't be prescribed is the guidance for the ICBs. So we believe as soon as they see that, they don't go any further. The one that says it can be prescribed is for patients and GPs. So it's confusing for people and for ICBs and for GPs. An ICB is an integrated, oh my God, I've forgotten what it was now, but they took over from CCGs, and the CCGs took over from the primary care groups, and they hold the money. So they are the ones that actually allow prescribing of certain medications. And we suggest that if you are refused, thank you very much, integrated care boards. You might be able to change their mind, but you do need to be able to have a very good case. And one of which might be that you have been tested for the DIO2 gene, because there was a little bit of research about the fact that people that have this gene, it's a polymorphism, that interferes with the conversion of T4 to T3. And some endocrinologists will allow people to be prescribed. So thank you, Tara. We have just produced a new page on our website called Liothyronine, which explains a lot about this with lots of links to the different guidance and everything. So do go along there. And we're still fighting, you know, but we are a bit concerned about the future because NHS England may not be there for much longer. And the ICBs have been told that they have to cut back their costs by 50%, and some are merging. So they're not going to be local, not so local anymore. Some are merging from something like 6 to 3 or 8 to 3. I've only just sort of heard about that recently, so I will be looking into that a little bit more next week probably. So it is very difficult, and I don't know where it's going to go, I'll be honest. I've always said that we need good quality research, and the research that's been done so far really, we believe, hasn't been done on the right cohort of people. So doing research on people that don't need T3 isn't going to help, because they're not going to feel well if they're given T3 and they don't need it. So this is something that we're involved with Dr. Colin Diane at the moment, and so are the other thyroid groups. But it's taking a long time to get this particular piece of research approved. You know, I think there's something going on there that is stopping it, but there seems to be a lot of barriers on getting approval, ethics approval. So as soon as I hear any more about that, as soon as it actually starts, then I'll let you know. So some people may not be aware, especially those on our Health Unlocked forum, they may not be aware that we have a website which has a lot of information on it. And we've just done a new liothyronine page and a new FAQ page for hypothyroidism, which has a lot of questions and answers on there, some of which that I think will be very useful to a lot of people. Some things are very simple, like taking your tablets in the morning with water and not eating. And then there are some things a little bit more complex that might be able to help you. So we also have a Facebook page, a Twitter page, and an Instagram page. Heidi has now set up for us a Blue Sky page. Although we're not on there a lot, it's something that we hope to expand a little bit more, because a lot of charities have left the Twitter page. So perhaps we're not getting quite as much reach on the Twitter page as we were. So do look out for those. So for our webinar this year, we have a mix of topics with some excellent speakers. And I'm just so happy that these speakers agreed to come and give us a talk. So I'm just going to go through them. The very first speaker is Professor Michael Rosen, and he's going to talk about his thyroid story and read a poem. Emma Hunt is a personal trainer who wants to help people through exercise, which is what she did. She has hypothyroidism, and she's going to do some videos for us. I think she's done some already on Instagram. So hopefully that will spread around to people. I know exercise is quite difficult for people with hypothyroidism often, but just walking would help, or jigging around in your front room, doing a dance, which is what I do sometimes. It's just movement, basically, moving a little bit more than you're used to. So I'm looking forward to that one, but I will say I haven't heard back from her that she received my nudge. So we'll see what happens. And then we've got Melissa Cohen, who is a nutritional therapist and an NLP practitioner, and she's going to be talking about kinesiology, which I have found in the past very helpful, and I'll tell you a little story about that when we get to her talk. So there's going to be a refreshment break at 12:30 for about half an hour, unless things have changed. And then at 1 o'clock, we're going to be watching a presentation by Rachel Hill, who is a best-selling author and multi-award-winning thyroid patient advocate. I've known Rachel for a very long time, as I have Melissa. And Rachel's spoken for us before, and this one is specifically about navigating fertility and pregnancy when you have hypothyroidism. And we do get quite a few people come to us who either have difficulties getting pregnant, or unfortunately they have lost babies along the way. So I'm really looking forward to this, and I hope that we can spread the word about this so that people don't have so many issues trying to have their babies. And our final speaker is Dr. Gibran Timothy Yusuf. I hope I pronounced that correctly. He's a consultant interventional radiologist at King's College Hospital. And that is one that I'm really, really looking forward to, because I had a nodule, and I had a hemithyroidectomy. For me, it was a little bit different because I'd been ill for 15 years prior to the nodule showing itself. And I had lots and lots of thyroid symptoms, but my tests were normal. So nothing was done. But when my lump came up, I was immediately sent to see a specialist, and on checking, they weren't sure whether it was cancer or not. So they gave me the hemithyroidectomy. And for me, it was the best thing ever, because I got better once I was on levothyroxine, or mostly better until I changed to NDT. But I know that there are a lot of people out there that have nodules that are interfering with swallowing and breathing, but they don't have symptoms. And what Dr. Yusuf has done is an easier way for patients to have an operation to get rid of the nodule. And I'm really looking forward to hearing about his information. So we have a few minutes before Professor Rosen speaks. So I'm just going to go back to the screen. Let me There are some questions there. Oh, thank you. Happy birthday to my husband. We bought him a lovely cake from Marks and Spencer's, so he's looking forward to that, eating that today. So someone is DIO2. Unfortunately, you can't get the DIO2 test on the NHS, so you have to pay for it privately. But we do work with a laboratory that does that. So if you go to our testing companies page, you'll find information on there. Agree, it needs proper cohorted research on those with the gene issue and the impact. Are there any clinicians who have a special interest in this area that we can campaign to be fully funded? Not that I'm aware of, unfortunately. But I think once you've got the test, then, I mean, it's possible that perhaps some endos might do the test for you, but I don't think it's not funded on the NHS, unfortunately. Thanks, Tara, for the template letter for MPs. It's something that I've put in our liothyronine page. Do approach your MP and try and get this changed. Let's have a look. No, exercise is good for hypothyroidism if you can manage some, but obviously if you're undertreated or you're not treated yet, if you have subclinical, then you do have to be careful. And when you're at the beginning of your thyroid journey on levothyroxine, I always tell people, don't go too mad. You know, I know when I was first on it, I would have a day where I felt absolutely amazing, and I would go and clean the house or do some gardening or go out for the day, and then I would just drop again for 2 or 3 days after that. So in the beginnings particularly, just be gentle with yourself, really. Take the medication. It can take about 8 to 10 days for levothyroxine to actually get into your system, and that's just the beginning. And then your body needs to repair itself on treatment, and right at the beginning you'll be given possibly 25, 50 micrograms, and then you'd have to go back 6 to 8 weeks afterwards to test to see how far your TSH has gone down, and then you might be given an increase of dosage. So it can take a long time. I think really, I mean, probably because I'd been ill for 15 years, it was really about 18 months before I realised, hang on, I can do a lot more now. It was a really, really slow process. I mean, everything's slow when you have hypothyroidism. Dr. Colin Diane's research, no, it's not to do with Dr. Lowe, bless him. There's a team in Glasgow that are doing it. It's more to do, I think, with Dr. Skinner's work, and I think that's where the barriers are. Yes, Regeneris Labs, they do the DIO2 test, but it's not just the DIO2 test. It used to be, they used to do that test alone, but now I think because some other companies and organisations are selling a whole raft of genetic testing, they changed. I think a company called Omnos work with them. I think they merged, or one took over the other. So they do a whole panel. And I don't think it's that much more expensive than the DI2 test was on its own. But that's the only way, as far as I know, that you can get the DIO2 test. They also do the DIO1 test. And I do know that there are some people as well that have that polymorphism as well. Oh, any information on how to take medication when going away to a different time zone? Oh, I've never been asked that question before. I would imagine you would just try and take it, when you wake up in the morning. It might mean that you miss a few hours, I expect, but I'm not really sure about the answer to that question. If it were me, I would just carry on taking it when I wake up in the morning. Sorry, I can't properly answer that question, but I'll see if I can find out for you. Hi, Michael. You're on camera. Hi, morning. Lovely to see you.
Hi. Yeah, no, I was just going to say is that remember that it's not like when you take thyroxine, it's not like taking paracetamol that has like a 4 hour or a 4 hour life. You're feeding something into yourself that all pans out over a period of time. So people
Yeah.
shouldn't worry about a kind of 4 hour, 6 hour, 8 hour, even 12 hour cycle. All right, when you're taking the pills, because the body is like absorbing it slowly. So just try
Yeah.
and keep it regular. That's all. I
Yeah,
mean, I'm only
that's the
saying what
thing.
doctors have told me. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Oh, that's good. I mean, that's what I would do. I know, missing one tablet even a day isn't going to make that much difference unless you're very, very sensitive to it. So I wouldn't worry too much.
Yeah. Just let it pan out and just think in terms of more like a 48-hour cycle rather than a
Yeah.
6 or 4 hour cycle.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael. That's good. Right. So we have 5 more minutes. I'll just answer another couple of questions. Is low cortisol from hypothyroidism? I've had 2 senescent tests and they are normal, but my cortisol remains low in range. I think there's a link between them. I think it could be both ways, to be honest. Okay, so I think that'll do for the questions for now, and I'll help with answering them a bit later. So I'm going to close that down. And now Michael's here. Okay, so I'm pleased to introduce our patron, Professor Michael Rosen, poet, children's author, and Professor of Children's Literature. We're so grateful that you managed to fit some time into your busy schedule to come and tell us your story. And I'm really looking forward to hearing it. And so I think when you're ready, that will be good. Thank you. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you very much, Lynn. Hello to everybody. You're looking at somebody who is full on Hashimoto's. You may not see that in my face, but if you go to Google Images and put in, I'd post it up if I was more fluent and know how to do this. You can see if you put in Michael Rosen thyroid, and then a black and white picture will come up in amongst the Google Images of me in the sort of final state of hypothyroidism before it was diagnosed. So that's the end point of the story. Let's go back to the beginning. In around 1966, when I was about 20, I began to notice symptoms that I'm sure all of you will recognize, but of course I didn't at the time, being a young man. So by no means a typical person in the profile of people who suffer from hypothyroidism, just various symptoms of things that were in no way related. So I never joined up the dots, and no doctor did. So, for example, I remember I was asked to join a college football team and play a game, and felt incredibly heavy-legged. And I thought, oh, well, maybe it's because I'm not going to bed. I don't drink, so it wasn't a hangover or anything like that. I just remember thinking, I used to be able to run for longer than this, and just felt in my quads, in my quadriceps, this kind of real heaviness. And I remember again at the Edinburgh Festival, a group of us knocking about playing footy between shows. And again, I remember them all running about faster than me and thinking, well, I know I was never fast. You notice this kind of way of apologising and trying to find explanations for yourself. It's very typical of people in the early stages of hypothyroidism. You try to sort of think, oh, well, it's because I'm not drinking enough, or I'm not taking I'm not eating enough vitamin C, or maybe I'm a bit anemic. And of course, mild anemia is one of the features of hypothyroidism anyway. So you start taking iron pills and things. And I just remember making these kind of explanations for myself. And then there were some pictures of me in a play or speaking at a meeting or something. And I looked at the pictures and I thought, golly, the bags under my eyes. And I was only about 20, 21, as I say, 1966, 67, 68. So around about those years. And I remember thinking, God, why is that? Oh, I suppose it's I'm not getting to bed. You see, I made the explanation. And then I remember one time, and these are sort of very early years, and I think, yeah, definitely before 71, 72, because I know who my partner was at the time, looking at my hands one morning and seeing the backs of the hands swollen. It was almost as if my knuckles had disappeared. And then again, I gave an explanation. I thought, oh, it was when I was walking in the country and I must have got nettle stings. You see this thing? This is what we do, isn't it? This will be familiar to many of you. And I thought, well, that's funny. And then the swelling went down. So I thought, yeah, well, I was right there, wasn't I? You see? And then, here was another one. I met up with someone I'd been at university with. So now I've left university. And so it's now about 1971. So keep the dates. I was born in 1946. So now I'm up to more like 24, 25, must be 1970 maybe. And I met up with him. We had a sort of chat, and then he met up again with my then partner. And she reported back to me that this chap, Toby, had said, what's the matter with Mike? It sounds a little bit as if his speech is slurred, or he's sort of slowed down. He used to be quite a sort of sparky sort of a guy. And I remember really being quite, when I heard this coming from my then partner, I sort of felt all kind of, slightly annoyed and almost aggressive, and thought, well, why are people trying to kind of do me down? No, I'm not. I don't take drugs. I don't drink. I've never done either. So this will come up again later, as you'll see. And so I started getting these kind of mentions of things wrong. And then the next one was I was working in a school. So this is moving on a bit, more like 1975, 76, I think. And I was working in a school in South London called Vauxhall Comprehensive, a school with a large number of African Caribbean girls in it. I remember one of the girls sitting next to me and staring at my face and saying, "You aren't half white." And she was a girl of colour, and me going, "Yeah, well, I am." You can have lovely conversations with teenagers about skin colour and so on, in the ways that as adults we don't, because they're very open about it and very intrigued. And so, I remember, for example, just I've digressed with one girl saying, "I can see all your veins." Me going, "Well, white skin, you can see the veins," and her kind of going, "Ugh," which I kind of quite liked as a writer in residence. But this one was saying, "You aren't half white." And I said, "Yeah, no, I am." And she said, no, you're whiter than the other white people." And I thought, am I? And again, you see, that was another thing, another sort of symptom. And then I started getting what I'd call the really bad cold symptoms. In fact, some of them, now I think back, actually had hit me a bit earlier than that. More like, I think the very first time I got it, what I'd get, it was like a feeling in which I felt the cold. I would like freeze like this and hold my chest because I was almost juddering. And I remember sitting on a bus in about that was early on, 66. So I'm leaping back now. So there was another disconnected symptom. And I remember going to see, I used to be in the singer Ewan McCall in a group with him, the man who wrote First Time Ever I Saw Your Face. And was in a kind of group with him. And I remember getting on the bus in Beckenham, and the guy who was with me was in an open white shirt with hardly a jacket, and I had on a jumper and a jacket, and I was going, "And do you think it's cold, Jim? Don't you think it's cold?" And I'm going, no, I think it's all right, Mike, actually. So you can see this is 66 to 75. So across those years, I'm beginning to get these symptoms, but I didn't connect them at all. And then someone, I remember commenting, about my lips and saying how they were kind of really puffy, and me looking in the mirror and kind of going, "Oh, well, I wonder why that is," and sort of wondering about why I had puffy lips. And then I'd be doing some radio recordings. I can remember the producer saying, Michael, can you speed it up a bit? And me thinking, well, actually, I'm going quite fast anyway, aren't I? And she said, well, you're sounding very dreary today. And I thought, am I? So can you play it back? So she played it back, and I thought, yeah, my voice didn't used to sound like that. It's gruffer, it's deeper, and it's taking a bit longer I'm now imitating me doing it. It's taking me a bit longer to speak, and I'm slushing my S's. So it's kind of saying, so welcome once again to the program. That's the kind of way I was talking. And if you think I'm exaggerating, I've heard recordings. And in fact, one of my kids, sadly, my late son, Eddie, I remember him once playing one of these, and he was born after I was cured, after I was diagnosed. And he used to do an imitation of me reading a story about somebody called the Knee-High Man. It was a folk story. And I remember him when he was about 5 or 6. He'd say, Dad, I'm going to go and listen to the Knee-High Man. And he was imitating me on the tape. Of course, I didn't mind by then. I was diagnosed. But at the time, if it had been then, I'd been kind of annoyed that people were taking the mickey out of the way my voice had changed. Then I noticed my hair had changed. So obviously you can see I've got grey hair now. But I used to have light brown hair, and it was quite sort of soft and a little bit curly. And you can see pictures of me from the sort of early 60s with hair like that. And then I noticed by the 70s, the mid 70s, it had gone wiry, that it went, the curls had all gone, the hair had thickened, and it was like, it's hard to describe it. It wasn't coiled, it was more like bristles. And I thought, well, that's funny. I wonder why it did. I wonder why my hair's changed. And I remember saying to people, "Oh, do you think my hair's changed?" And people just, are people interested that your hair's changed? No. As with all these symptoms, nobody's really interested. In fact, they get quite annoyed if you come up to them and go, "Oh, look, I used to put, I'm sure my hands weren't quite so like this. I'm sure I could see my knuckles." And people go, "Yeah, all right, Michael, all right." It's like not a symptom. It doesn't matter. So I'm not I'm connecting them up now when I'm talking to you, but of course I didn't connect any of these things up. And so your hair, you just think, oh, well, I know, I'll wash my hair with a different shampoo. Oh, God, it's pathetic. And that'll deal with it. And then you tell yourself it's worked. You go, yeah, this shampoo's really worked. I remember buying a shampoo and conditioner all in one and going, oh, this has really worked. This is brilliant. It's funny that my hair was frizzy. Oh yeah, now it's worked. Of course, it didn't make any difference at all. I just told myself it had. And so now we're sort of pushing on towards the end of the 70s, and some things are getting a bit critical in the sense that I noticed that I can't really run for a bus. And then I noticed something quite acute, which is when I beat an egg, that when I beat an egg, my hand would freeze. My hand would freeze like that. So I'm beating an egg like that, and then it would go, and it was like there. I think the technical word for it in medical terms is summation. All right, that's where instead of decontracting, which is what you're doing there, you contract, then decontract, contract, decontract. That what happens with hypothyroidism is that it can't do that. All right. So that's what that heavy leg thing is that in order for us to do repeated exercise of any sort, even talking, you have to contract, decontract very, very quickly. And under hypothyroidism, you can't. So one of the symptoms of hypothyroidism is this thing called summation, where you can't decontract. So you just start seizing up. Yeah. I remember noticing that. Well, again, you don't go to the doctors and say, doctor, when I beat an egg, I find it really difficult. But again, it's a symptom. And then things started getting critical. I remember once we went on holiday. I should think this is getting towards about 79, 1980. And we went on holiday in Wales, and we were with another family, and everybody was going out. And I said, how can you go out? It's so cold. And so I literally spent the whole holiday like clutching the fire in this cottage in Wales and didn't go out with anybody else. They all went out and I didn't. I just said, I can't. It's just too cold. And I remember them thinking it was quite funny. So I didn't think, I was ill. I just thought, well, I'm just one of these blokes who just finds it really hard when it gets cold. And at the same time, I was noticing my eyes were watering. So if ever I went out in the wind, I was like crying. And again, well, I mean, everybody does a bit, whether they're hypothyroid or not. So again, you can't go to the doctors and go, when it's windy, my eyes water. Yeah, okay, off you go, sunshine. So I didn't do that at first, at any rate. And then really one of the final steps was going for a walk with my then partner on Hackney Downs. If you know, not Hackney Downs, Hackney Marshes. And if you know Hackney Marshes, it is completely flat. Okay, it really is as flat as a pancake. It's what's called an alluvial plain. All right, so it's been absolutely washed flat by the river. And me saying it's uphill. And my partner going, no, it isn't. And I'm saying, no, look, you see there, that bump there, that's really steep. And with that and the combination of the eyes weeping, actually this eye is a bit, but that's nothing to do with that. That's because of COVID. But anyway, I won't deal with that. So I went to the doctors and said, look, I think there's something wrong with my eyes. And he said, yeah, it's conjunctivitis. So I said, oh, thanks very much. And he prescribed a little yellow gunk stuff that I then spent a fortnight squeezing into my eyes, then 3 weeks. And in actual fact, of course, it made it worse, which was a good reason to go back to him. And he stared at me and he said, your eyes are a bit swollen, aren't they? And I said, are they? He said, yes, I think I'm going to run a kidney test. So that was nice of him. Anyway, so they ran a kidney test and it came back and he said, well, it's not showing a lot, but you're a bit low on hemoglobin. So I'm going to refer you to Bart's at St Bartholomew's Hospital in London. So I thought, oh, right, maybe there's been something wrong with my kidneys then. That's possible. So I arrived at the renal unit in Bart's in 1981, opposite a man called Mr. Baker, a wonderful consultant. And he said to me, right, so I've got this information on your kidneys. Out of interest, Mr. Rosen, what were you doing today? So I'll now go into my imitation of me 1981 mode now. Okay, excuse my impression. And I said, I'm doing some workshops with school students on the Isle of Dogs. And he said, oh yes, what were you doing? And I said, we were walking by the side of the docks and writing poems. And he stared at me like this and he said, I think this idea there's something wrong with your kidneys is a load of rubbish. And he pushed the notes to one side and he said, you're hypothyroid. Now, for many people, that wouldn't have meant anything at all, but I haven't told you in my life story here that I did do 2 years of medicine. And I didn't actually flunk it, but I decided I wasn't going to be a good doctor, so I gave up. And one of the books that we had while I was doing it was called Samuel Wright or Samson Wright's Physiology. And in this book, there is 2 photographs. And the picture on the left is of a woman with a big white moon face, round white moon face. And then next to her is a woman after treatment. And her face is all shrunk down. And I used to think, for those of you of my age, references coming up now, that the woman on the left looked like Hattie Jakes and the woman on the right looked like Vera Lynn. Okay, so I always used to call this Hattie Jakes and Vera Lynn, you see. And I knew it. And I used to think, well, isn't that incredible that you could be one moment like that? This is actually, as it happens, just as hypothyroidism was beginning to kick in with me. That's when I was doing medicine. In 65, 66, 67, you see. Little did I know that it was just beginning to kick in. Irony of ironies. And so the moment Mr. Baker said, you're hypothyroid, in came Hattie Jakes and Vera Lynn. If you don't know them, do feel free to look them up. Anyway, so, there's dear old Hattie, who I loved and adored, both of them, as performers and show people. and I could see me as I am, and then I could see my face is very like my mum's, very, very genetically similar. And it was like a great wave came over me, because I knew more or less what hypothyroidism was at that moment. And it was like the previous 10, 15 years all collapsed into this moment. And it was a shock. It was very saddening. I mean, at that moment, I felt very kind of bad that I'd not diagnosed myself. Nobody else had diagnosed me. And I realized the huge difference then between the way I was at that moment in 1981 compared with the way I was, well, between 60, as a late teenager, 64 to, well, even as far as 68, 69, before the sort of symptoms fully kind of kicked in. And so there was this great wave of feeling and emotion and sadness kind of hit me. But Mr. Baker was very excited. He said, "This is wonderful. This is incredible." Meaning you don't normally get young men or youngish men with hypothyroidism. It is pretty rare. So he said, right, I'm going to get the students in. Okay. So he got the students in and he said, "What's he got? What's he got?" And they went, "Kidneys, sir." "No, just because we're in the renal department, it doesn't mean that he's got something wrong with his kidneys. What do you think? What do you think?" And they went, "Don't know, so is it renal failure?" "No, it doesn't make any difference if you change the name." It turned into John Cleese now, but anyway, never mind. I'll carry on. So, no, well, I'm going to leave the room, find out what he's got, and I'm going to come back in again in 2 minutes' time. So he went out, and immediately one of the students came right up to my ear and said, "What have you got?" And I said, "I don't think I'm supposed to tell you." You see, and they stood round me, staring at me. And then 2 minutes later, in came Mr. Baker, and he said, "Okay, what's he got?" And I said, "Is it kidneys, sir?" "No, no, it isn't kidneys, for goodness sake. Have you touched him?" And they went, "No." So he put his hand on me and he said, "See that? Clammy, cold, cold. Look at that." And then he said, "Bend your, put one leg over the other, Mr. Rosen." And then he whacked me on the reflex, just below the kneecap like that. And there was literally zero reaction. He went bang like that with a hammer. And it was just nothing, absolutely nothing. But look at that, no reflex. What do you think? "Is it kidneys, sir?" "No, it's not kidneys." And he said, "Okay, Mr. Rosen, would you just walk heel toe across the floor, you see? 1 foot behind the other." So I got up and I tried to do it, and I couldn't. I couldn't actually do it. I'm just like T.D. He said, "See that? Look, how old is he? 35? 35? He can't even walk." That's right, isn't it? Yeah, 1981. He said, "Look, he can't even walk across the floor. Have you felt his pulse? Look, try and find his pulse. See, I can't even find it. His heart's gone to sleep. You can't even find his pulse." You see? So he was getting very, very excited. And he said, "This is extraordinary." So the students were utterly shamefaced. And he said, "He's hypothyroid." And they were going, "Oh, right, yeah." And they're writing it down, hypothyroid. You see? Anyway, so they sent me away for a blood test. And I came back a few days later to Bart's. And I was met by, now nobody believes this, all right, okay, but I promise you, I know I do tell stories and they get a bit exaggerated. I promise you, his name was, wait for it, Dr. Gesundheit. Okay, no, it really was. So if you don't know, Gesundheit in German means health, good health, and it's also what you say when somebody sneezes. Yes, so when somebody sneezes in German, you go Gesundheit. You see? Anyway, this doctor was called Dr. Gesundheit. If you don't believe me, he's now a professor of physiology at Stanford University in America. He was American. So you can look it up if you don't believe me. Write in Professor Gesundheit, Stanford University, just so you know that I'm telling you the truth. I'm not lying today. Okay. So anyway, and Dr. Gesundheit, he opened up the notes and he said, "Technically, you're dead." It's not something you want to hear, okay? And I said, "I don't think I am dead." And he said, "Well, if you're not dead, you should be in a torpor." And I've never forgotten the way he said that. "You should be in a torpor." We would say torpor, I suppose. Anyway, and I've always remembered that. I should be in a torpor. And he said, "You've got to come in right now." And he literally grabbed me and said that I was in danger of dying at that moment. because my thyroid, what he explained was that my thyroid had disappeared, wasn't producing any thyroxine, so that had all gone. And that also the antibodies, because they test for the antibodies at that point, I think, all the antibodies that had consumed it, well, they don't consume it directly, but anyway, that's shorthand. All right, they had disappeared as well. So technically, I was running on zero. There was no thyroid gland left. The butterfly gland there, sitting on your Adam's apple, if you're a man, sitting on your larynx, had completely gone, and all trace of even the antibodies trying to get rid of it had gone. So God knows what I was running on. Those of you who know, the thyroid sends hormone into the mitochondria. So what the mitochondria were running on, that's usually called the powerhouse of the cell. So what fuel the powerhouses in my cells were running on, I have no idea. So presumably the body has other resources, I don't know anyway, but I was standing and I had been active. I mean, I was doing workshops in schools and, I was getting up a bit late, I suppose, but I mean, I was still going and still doing 1 hour shows and working with these kids at George Green School and all the rest of it, and making schools TV programs. So I don't know, it's a mystery. Anyway, so I was admitted straight away now to the metabolic unit, as it was called, at Barts. And there were a whole set of people with extreme hormonal problems, endocrine problems, I should say. It was quite a sight, actually. There was a guy who was about 8 foot tall with a great big barking voice and very long earlobes and nose. And of course, he had acromegaly, your endocrine. I mean, we're all linked up because they're all various forms of autoimmune illness. And there was a poor little guy who hadn't grown at all, and he was really very, very small, and they were pumping him full of growth hormone, which can be quite dangerous, and various other people anyway. But they were all generally agreed that I looked weird. It was quite funny, actually, because, I think if a Martian had arrived, they'd wonder what kind of human beings we all were. But they all decided, they stood at me. I remember the great big bloke saying, he was a lovely, gentle guy. And, every time he opened his mouth, he kind of barked. It was just so sad because people thought he was aggressive. And they went, "You look weird," like that. And well, we did all look weird. And I'm not being pejorative here. That's just sort of the way these endocrine illnesses, the kind of effect they have, because it's like a sort of secret system in our bodies that we don't know about. We know about our blood vessels, we know about our skeleton, we know about our muscles, we know that, we got hearts and the rest of it, and endocrine sort of, it's like all these hormones, it's all kind of secret, isn't it? We don't really know how it works. And there's this thing that seems to switch them on and off called the pituitary, but that's just like saying it's a magic box that we got at the base of our brain. So it's kind of, oh, right, yeah, the pituitary switches them on and off. And you go, yeah, well, who tells the pituitary to do that? And it's kind of, well, the brain. And you go, what, you mean I say to the pituitary, go? And then when you have conversations with doctors about this, it doesn't get that much more of an explanation. So anyway, I'm not being horrible about medicine. It's just the pituitary and the endocrine system there are mysterious bits about it. Anyway, so then I was put on tiny amounts of thyroid because of thyroxine. They were very, very worried about giving you a lot straight away because of the potential stress on the heart. I don't know whether there were tragic cases early on when Hashimoto found it. Remember, in the history of the illness, it was Hashimoto who discovered the thing. My particular thyroid complaint. You have others, and of course they used to mash up cows' thyroids, and they found that brought the relief before they started inventing synthetic thyroxine. So now a little bit on the history of my treatment. Well, good Mr. Besser back at Barts, he slapped me in the end on about 200 micrograms. And I was pretty zippy on that. But then when they got a bit more sophisticated with the windows, which you'll all be familiar with, the TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, that the pituitary and the thyroid, they work in tandem like this. When the thyroid's not emitting, up goes the pituitary. And when it is emitting too much, down goes the pituitary. So what they do, and this will be a matter of some controversy, is quite often they don't measure the amount of thyroxine in your blood, and they don't measure its uptake in the muscles. So so if you think of it as a chain system, we'll start at the pituitary. The pituitary is the switch, and then the thyroid gland, if you've got it, or in the case of taking pills, is the light bulb. Okay, so they don't not always measure when the light bulb comes on. They're measuring whether the switch is fully on or not. Yeah, because the switch is dependent on how much thyroid is in the blood. Okay, and you'll also know that there's T3 and T4, so the thyroid doesn't only produce T4, it produces T3 as well. So anyway, these are all complex things that's a little bit more complex than first appears. Anyway, so then I came down to 200, and they said, no, your TSH is too low. In other words, I'm being overstimulated. Yeah. So then they took it down to 125, and I was on 125 for about, I don't know, it could be as much as 20 years, but about a year to 18 months ago, my doctor suddenly announced, your TSH is too low. You've got to come down to 100. Now, I got grumpy, and I said, no, I don't want to take it down immediately to that, because I actually experience heavy legs. She said, what do you mean? I said, well, I mean, I know I'm old, but when I go upstairs, and I go up a lot of stairs on the underground, I travel a lot, and I say I quite often find that I get this heavy leg thing that I used to get, went way, way back, in the 60s. And they don't really hear that, doctors. They just think either, well, maybe it is because I'm old. But anyway, I can feel it in my thighs, and I do a lot of squats and stuff to try and keep my legs strong. So I said, I'll take myself down to every other day. So what I do is I take 125 one day and 100 the next. So I kind of self-dosed, and she agreed. I wouldn't have done it without her permission. And then when I had a blood test a few weeks later, she said, that's fine. So the reason why, and you'll know this, but if you don't, I'll say it anyway. The reason why they don't like us, as they see it, overdosing on thyroxine, is because of the knock-on effect of osteoporosis. And osteoporosis, this is what they tell me anyway, so I'm only repeating what doctors have said to me. I mean, osteoporosis, when you get to my age, is an incredibly serious problem. Basically your bones give up, just to put it bluntly, is that your bones get soft. And if you know anybody with full-on osteoporosis, and I know women are slightly more susceptible to men, particularly if they've breastfed a lot, because it is effectively a form of calcium deficiency. But even so, people say that it's connected with autoimmune things and all the rest of it. So it's quite complicated. But even so, you do not want to have soft bones for a variety of reasons, because at the end of the day, you can't sit up. I mean, severe osteoporosis means you can't walk, you can't sit up. So it's a terrible illness. So they're very worried. Whether that's a false worry, I don't know, but they're very worried that if you overdose for a long time, you will get osteoporosis. So that's what happens. Now, finally, because I see I'm just coming up to time, my wife has Hashimoto's as well. So we live and love together as in Hashimoto's. But now this bit is not so funny by any means. All right. Both our children have experienced both hypothyroid. So our youngest, we suddenly noticed he wasn't growing when he was a teenager. And indeed, his face was swelling up and becoming moon-like. In fact, at first, we just went saying he's not growing, and the doctor didn't notice anything. And then Emma, my wife, said, you don't think he's hypothyroid, do you, Michael? And I went, oh, my God, look at his eyelids, which I always use as the test, that swollen bit, where your eyelashes come out. When you see somebody with the swollen bit there, that is a real classic hypothyroid symptom. It's where the edema almost first shows itself in the eyelids. It's in the little bulby bit where the eyelashes come out, yeah. And I said, oh my God, he's hypothyroid, which Emma had deduced because that's one. If hypothyroidism hits a growing child, then it will stunt their growth. And it isn't growth hormone, it's because you need it. You need the thyroxine in your mitochondria in order to grow and have energy. So anyway, he was diagnosed with that. and then it gets more serious because he has a comorbidity. So he has, in fact, he has Addison's as well. So I diagnosed that when he was 18 or 19. He was falling over, he was getting dizzy, he was being sick. He had low blood pressure. The doctor thought it was lifestyle, but anyway, we urgently took him to A&E where he was diagnosed, and he's on hydrocortisone 3 times a day. So it's quite rare for a young man, age 20, well, age 18 then. So he has Addison's and hypothyroidism. And meanwhile, our daughter also has not comorbidity, but another problem, which women will recognize here, is that she has PCOS. So that's been diagnosed officially. So for those of you who don't know, that's you sort of have holes in your ovary. So if you imagine the ovary, it's sort of like a sponge, but with quite very small holes, and it produces follicles, which then turn into eggs. All right. But then when you're under the microscope, if you have PCOS, anyway, you'll know what it stands for. Polycystitis. Oh, no, not cystitis. That's something else. Polycystic, anyway, ovarian, something or other. PCOS, anyway. There are big holes in the ovary. So what that's doing is actually preventing the follicles from turning to eggs. So that's one symptom, but it has a lot of other symptoms connected to it, to do with energy and to do with, so obviously fertility, can have terrible effects on your skin, on hair growth. So there's a whole set of symptoms connected to PCOS because it's affecting the amount of estrogen you're producing. So the whole period cycle is affected as well, because if you're not producing estrogen, you don't produce progesterone. So the ovarian cycle and so on, the menstrual cycle is completely disrupted. So there we are, slightly sad ending to my story, but also for any doctors listening, of course, the genetic link between parent and child and hypothyroidism. It's known the genetic link is about the potential to develop the illness. It's not a direct genetic link. So if you take, I don't know, skin color, for example, there's a genetic link between parents and skin color to do with the amount of melanin in your skin. Yes. All right. But with thyroid, and I think with other endocrine problems and so on, it seems to be that the genetic link is to do with the potential to develop the illness. I think that's the state of the art, state of the science. I better stop. Look, I've been chatting on for a bit. Okay, thanks ever so much. I hope some of that is useful and even wryly amusing.
Oh, Michael, that was amazing. Honestly, you made me laugh so much for something that, a debilitating disease. And it sort of reminded me of myself in a way. I had all these separate symptoms, and they sent me to all these separate specialists who said, no, nothing wrong with you, or they gave me a medication for this, or, and it just didn't get me anywhere. And for me, I had the light bulb moment. My lump came up, and I went to hospital to have a check on it. And while I was in the waiting room, I saw an article about thyroid disease. Someone been diagnosed with all these symptoms, and I just went, wow, that's me. What the hell? So I just, all those years, I don't know about you, but it affected a lot for me with my family. I couldn't do things. I remember taking my little boy, who was like 2 years old at the time, to a group session where they went on all these different activities, and I was propping myself up against the wall all the way around this gym, those kind of things. And like you, there used to be a very, very slight upward thing on the pavement for me to take him to school. And honestly, I dragged myself up that incline, and I thought, what's going on here? Everybody else is walking normally, and I'm dragging myself up here. And it was such a small incline, and I thought, I don't understand. But then it all comes together at the end when you're finally diagnosed, and you realise, and we're here to try and allow people to get more and more information so that they can realise themselves, hang on a minute, perhaps I've got thyroid disease. I need to go to the GP and try and get this sorted. But yeah, there's a lot of things, I mean, you talk about T3 and T4. For a lot of people, they need T3 as well, especially if they don't have a thyroid. And we're getting involved more and more in research for that with a Dr. Professor Colin Diane in Cardiff, not Glasgow, I said earlier, in Cardiff. So because the research doesn't really show, not properly, and I'm not quite sure if they're doing it quite correctly. So, and I've always said right from the beginning, the only thing that's going to change is when research shows. There are some doctors that are anti-T3 and there are some doctors that are pro-T3. And you just have to make sure that you get the right doctor that would be willing to even look into it. So, yeah, I'm sure a lot of people have similar stories to ours, that it's taken a long time to get there. And even when they get there, sometimes it can take a long time to get better, or you get so far better but not quite that little bit more. And if you have the DIO2 gene, you probably need T3. There's been a little bit of research about that. So, yeah, it's not as easy getting diagnosed, and sometimes it's not as easy getting well. It's not as easy sometimes as taking a little tablet every day. So, and I know they made a mistake with me. They put me onto 200 very, very quickly within 5 days of coming out of hospital after my operation. And I was, whoa, I was just, my heart rate, I thought I was going to die. I was sweating. And I thought then, okay, I need to take control of this. And so I did. But it took me a long time to get better. I don't know if it took you several months to get actually on top of form again.
Yeah, actually, I can see it actually because I was on a TV program. Who knows? Some people might remember it, called Everybody Here, where I played a character called Dr. Smarty Pants. And when you look at the very first stuff of it, very first programs, I can see that my face is still puffy, and I was doing that in the beginning of 82. I was diagnosed in the March 81, so 6 months, it was still, my face was still puffy 6 months later. I think the general view, I think, from people who know me then, that it took me about a year because I started taking up running, and I remember running a half marathon.
Wow.
Just to prove whether I could do it. A typical sort of blokey sort of thing to do, and I did. I got in under 2 hours. I was quite proud of myself. And I did that, I think, probably by about 83, 84, something like that. So, yeah. But as I say, right at this very moment, if you said, am I fine with my thyroid? I'd say, well, yeah, but I don't like this heavy leg thing when I go upstairs. And when I run for the bus, I can feel that summation thing. I can feel my legs seizing up. So at some point or other, I may go to the doctors and say, oh, I may just resign myself to being an old geezer. There's a nice Yiddish phrase, actually. Well, it's not nice, but anyway, we call ourselves alter kackers. It's probably, those of you who know the word cack, it's related to that.
So it's the
old pooers. Anyway, it's what we call ourselves, alter kackers. Alter is old, and cacker, well, I'll leave you with that. So anyway, it's my dad always called himself an alter cacker, so I call myself an alter cacker. So it's a way of sort of enjoying the fact of the condition you're in. If people want to read, by the way, sorry, a big plug, want to read about me overcoming thyroid and also the death of my son, it's in a book called Getting Better. All right, so it's published by Penguin. So if you're interested in kind of mulling over it, it's in there. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant! Thank you so much for. I just so enjoyed it. It was amazing, and just thank you so much for coming along.
Well, thank you, and thanks everybody for listening. I hope that was useful. And well, I've been making notes as well about the DIO2 gene test and the do we need T3, because I think everybody in the family. So I say we're a family who, I don't know the equivalent of play together, pray together. But anyway, thyroid together, and I don't know, factoid together or something. Anyway, so I will share this information. Remind me what an NDT is.
That's natural desiccated thyroid.
Oh, yes, of course it is.
Yeah, you can't get that on the NHS, or very rarely. But I think for you, we have a lot of people. We have a lot of people come to me saying that their doctors have reduced their levothyroxine and they get their symptoms back. Yeah. And there is an issue with the TSH. You know, it's quite complex. But what we recommend is if you have low TSH and your GP wants to reduce your levo and you feel poorly, go and have a DEXA scan to make sure that you don't have osteoporosis and that your bones are strong. Because I know people that have very low TSH for a long time and their bones are fine. So we're not quite sure. I think there needs to be more research into that area.
Yeah.
So
yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Very good. Okay, lovely. Well, so there we are. Lovely exchange of information. That's what we're all about. I'm on various social media. I'm on X and Facebook, Blue Sky and LinkedIn. So if people want to chat, I'm always happy to chat thyroids. Go on to excellent. So always happy to go DM me or any of those private ones. Best not to do it in public. Though I do sometimes make jokes about my thyroid. Now, today I just posted a picture of me in 1981. So if you're on X, you can see me with my big puffy face. And there is actually a video of me talking. I noticed from about 1979, 1980, sort of barking on tape. Really? The knee high man. So there you go. All right then, folks.
Thanks very much,
please
Michael.
Be in touch and let's all keep sharing and exchanging. Only connect, as E.M. Forster once said. Only connect.
Okay, have a good day. Take care.
Have a good day to you all. Best wishes.
Bye. Bye. Our next speaker is Emma Hunt, a personal trainer who has hypothyroidism and who managed to overcome the challenges that many of us have. She wants to inspire others to embrace fitness and rediscover a passion for movement, health, and fitness. So I know for me to try and I try and do things that take a little bit longer for me to walk to. So to try and do it, and sometimes I just walk around the house with my husband sitting in his armchair laughing at me because I'm trying to get my steps in indoors. So, and I do it sometimes here when I'm on my own. I get up and walk around. And I remember at board meetings, I had a particular trustee who used to get up in the middle of the board meeting and just walk round because it was a big long desk. There was lots of us. She used to get up and walk round around the table. And I used to think it a bit strange in those days, but now I understand you have to try and get steps in. Just doing everyday things really helps a lot, doesn't it? And then I think the next step is to try and do it a bit more formally with proper exercises and things. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing your speech.
Thank you, Lynn. Hi, everyone. I'm Emma. As Lynn's introduced me, I'm a personal trainer, hypothyroidism. So basically my journey is I started training a few years ago. I caught the bug for gym and fitness about 5-6 years ago, and I really wanted to inspire others. I'd found a big case for feeling great doing my own training, so I wanted to qualify PT myself. So I went on and did my journey there. Unfortunately, a year after I qualified, I began to feel unwell. No sort of anything obvious that brought it on. Really strange. Started feeling lots of tiredness, having daily naps, which was unusual for me, going for someone that was training quite fit and healthy in the gym, and also obviously the weight gain and everything else. So for me, it was quite an unusual sort of unusual symptoms for myself, as I'd been through all the health and fitness stuff. So I then decided to go for some tests, and I was obviously diagnosed with hypothyroidism. I decided at the time, once I'd had the diagnosis, that I would focus on getting myself back to a stage where I was sort of fit and healthy and wanted to kind of rest my body. As my body was obviously telling me something, so I wanted to take the time out, rest and everything else. So I stepped away from the personal training and the gym for a couple of years, and I've just got back into it myself probably about a year ago, 6 months to a year. but I found it's a massive benefit getting back into it again. Definitely seen a big change in my mood, mental health massively. It took a big dive when I was obviously given a diagnosis. It was all quite unexplained, so it tends to hit you quite hard when you've got something that's sort of unexplained and come from nowhere. So getting back into the exercise has really helped me improve my mood and all of that stuff. It's definitely helped with my energy levels, as we're all aware with hypothyroidism. It can fluctuate. Your energy can be up and down on a daily basis. So I've definitely found that getting back into the health and fitness really helped me with my energy and sleep. We all know hypothyroidism can massively help our sleep and affect our sleep. Apologies, I'm stumbling over my words. So it can, obviously, we can be up during the night and different things like that. So I've found that it does have a massive effect on my sleep and improving my sleep. It's also taken me back to a stage where I was about 3 years ago prior to my diagnosis of getting back my strength, which for me was a massive thing. I'd done so well myself through training with a personal trainer that I wanted to get back to that strength again. So it really, getting back into the gym and everything else, it really pushed me to get back in there. So it's been of a massive benefit to myself, obviously going through my own journey of doing the personal training with someone to becoming a personal trainer and then having to step back. So health and fitness really for me is a major factor in making sure that I maintain sort of my energy levels and hypothyroidism and to sort of keep a good balance on a daily life. It's all, yeah, that's kind of me. I know it's sort of short and sweet, but that's kind of my story and where I kind of got to right now.
Hey, so I know that you did some videos for us.
Yeah, so sorry, I forgot to mention that. So yeah, there is a video on Instagram, which is accessible for everyone if you go onto my Instagram page, which I can pop in the chat for anyone that wants to go and view that. I'm also in the process of filming a few more to put out on Instagram, probably on a weekly basis. And obviously send over to yourself as well, Lynn, so you can, if there's anyone here that wishes to access those videos through your social channels and through your YouTube, I can send those out and people can access them that way as well.
Okay, I mean, I've got one ready. I think it wasn't very long. The one that you sent me, it wasn't very long, so I wasn't sure about showing it now.
Yeah, that would be great. I did try and get it up onto the screen today, but for some reason my sharing systems on this is a bit up and down. So I was trying to find it to share and put up today, but it may be worth just sort of.
I'll give it a go.
Gives you an idea of the kind of things that you could do. It doesn't have to be sort of strength training as I do. It's just that daily movement and getting out and about and just doing little bits on a daily basis to sort of help yourself feel stronger, feel healthier and get that fitness.
Okay, let me see if I can bring it up.
Hi everybody, welcome to the third in a series of at-home workouts with myself, Emma, and Thyroid UK. Today's focus is going to be on the upper body. So we're going to do a little warm-up, 3 exercises, and then a little cool down at the end. Now, all these exercises can be done body weight, but if you would like to add any extra resistance, then please go and grab yourself some little dumbbells, tins, water bottles, whatever you have. Add yourself a little bit of extra resistance. But if you want to keep your body weight, then that's absolutely fine. So we're going to start now with that warm up. Take those arms out for me and take them back. Let's warm up the shoulders. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then bring them forward for me. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Nice. Then we're going to bring those arms across the chest. So reach out and swing across for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Make sure you're opening that chest. 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Amazing work. Should be feeling nice and warm now. We're going to take it now into our first exercise, which is bicep curls. I need you to stand with your arms down by your sides, make your hands into a fist for me, and then curl the fists up towards the shoulders. We'll go for 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Amazing work. Let's take a little rest. Shake your arms out if you need to. Have a little dance. Next exercise we're going to go into is that overhead shoulder press. Arms 90 degrees, hands in fists for me, and we're going to push those fists up and in together. And we'll go for 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Amazing work. Shake yourself out again, have a little dance, move about. If we need to, have a little wiggle, a little jiggle. And then we're going to take it into our third exercise, which is the bent over row. So what I need you to do for me is bend over at the hips, bend that bum out towards the back, slight bend in your knees, hands down by your sides, make the hands into fists, and draw those elbows back for me, and feel that in your shoulders. And we'll go for 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Amazing work. That's the end of your 3 exercises. We're now going to take it into a little cool down. So we're going to do a cross body stretch. So reach that left arm across, curl your right arm up, hold that for 10 for me. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Nice. Switch sides, bring that right across to that left. Hold up. 10 for me. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Rest it there. Right, next exercise is going to stretch out those shoulders for me again. Link your fingers, turn those hands round and push out towards the front. And take that for 10 for me. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Amazing job today, guys. I look forward to seeing you on the next one.
As I say, it's mainly for people. I don't know in terms of people's experience with health and fitness themselves, but as I explained it, I'd sort of gone from being quite in the gym quite a lot, training 3-4 times a week, and also with a personal trainer, to then going to the diagnosis. It was a massive kind of shock and knock-on effect from being that healthy person to going and suffering with the obviously the tiredness, the weight gain, and everything else. So anything I could do to sort of help people, just daily basis, 5-10 minutes, getting up, moving about. If you're one of those people that enjoys doing step counts and going out and getting your steps in and things like that, running up and down the stairs, it's for me movement is kind of really helped me to focus again and not think more about movement and how it affects my body rather than how the hypothyroidism sort of affecting me. But it's definitely had a lot of benefits, and it is a really good way of trying to help yourself and help your body sort of focus on the positives and not on what's trying to attack you.
Yeah, there's a few people saying, yes, please put it on YouTube. So I think that's your key to go and set up a YouTube page.
Yeah, I will definitely set up my YouTube page.
I think a lot of us older people, myself very much included, I'm not au fait completely with Insta. Heidi does that for me, and if I do go on there to do anything, I'm not sure what I'm doing is right. So
yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. I mean, the only thing with the not YouTube, Instagram, is when you're trying to upload a video that's more than a minute long, it kind of just
really?
It doesn't like it. You have to break it. Like the video I've had to put up, I had to break it down into three sections, so that obviously with YouTube.
Wow. Yeah, no, it will all go up. It's brilliant. You know, we've got a YouTube channel. I don't know if you can share on YouTube. I'm not sure if you could put them on yours and then share them. I don't know. Again, YouTube isn't something I'm really good at.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a way of figuring it out and putting them on so we can share them together. If I sort of tag you in the video, potentially it might work that way. Or if I just send them all across to you once I've done them, and then as they go out, I can put them on my YouTube as well as you guys put them on yours as well.
Okay. So how long have we got? We've got like about 10 minutes. Has anybody got any questions for Emma about perhaps how to start with exercise when you've got hypothyroidism? Any opinions on cold showers as part of an exercise routine? I know they're supposed to be really good for you, cold showers and cold dipping, but it's not for me, I must say.
It's really beneficial when you've done exercise to sort of help with the muscle recovery. So I found certainly that a lot of people tend to do it post-exercise to obviously help with the muscle recovery. So it's definitely beneficial. I would include it at the end, probably at the end of a workout, just to obviously help with the muscle recovery. I've got quite a few messages now in the chat that I'm just trying to go through.
I thought that something warm. I always thought something warm was good after you'd done exercise, but perhaps things have changed now.
Yeah, it's a combination of the two things. It's sort of the heat and the cold is quite beneficial for recovery across the board. So because it helps with like the muscle recovery. So yeah, it depends on sort of people's sort of explain this now, how quickly your muscles recover from the exercise. And it's also so I think it's also very person focused as well. If you prefer a cold sort of shower or a cold ice bath and everything else after you've exercised or during your training, go for it. If you prefer heat, then go for that as well. But if you can do a combination of the two, then even more benefit from it as well. Just trying to.
I always have it at the end after a sauna. Someone has put. So Joe Duggan.
Sauna, saunas are beneficial as well.
Yeah. Says, isn't stress extremely cold actually not very good for us? Any stress? I'm not sure about that one. I mean, yes, stress isn't good. Obviously,
no, stress isn't good. Obviously, I would say that everyone's got a different situation in terms of the level of potential hypothyroidism and how it affects your body. So I definitely recommend that you take it to your own levels and make it for you. So if you find that cold is beneficial for you, go for the cold water therapy, cold showers. It's all dependent on how your body reacts to the exercise and how you feel. So it's important to kind of, I know myself that if I go out and do an hour strength training, I need to probably for myself go and do it in the morning, because by the end of the day, that's my energy levels will be into the ground. So it's for everyone individually, how it works for them, how it works with your body, and how you feel sort of with the fatigue. If you're better off in the mornings, go for it. Go and do that strength training. Go and do that half-hour walk and get yourselves out and about and get that day started. If you find yourself better in the evenings, then go and grab the exercise and
It's
do
very
it.
individual, isn't it? I would have
Yeah,
thought mornings would be good for a lot of us because your cortisol levels are higher in the morning than they are in the afternoon and evening, and that might just give you a little bit of help to do the exercise. So this lady Lucy is saying, what exercise is the best to start with? I've just been diagnosed 2 months ago and never really knew much about exercise anyway, but now I'm really struggling. Do I do light cardio, weights? What is best?
what is there? So I would say a combination of everything you said there. The light cardio, weights, what is best. So you're better off starting on doing sort of light to moderate exercise. So in terms of your mobility and movement, getting out for sort of 10-15 minute walks, going out, sort of building that heart rate up, using light weights. I don't know if you've got if you go to a gym or if you sort of would be looking to work out at home. But definitely strength training is really good for helping with building up your muscle mass, your strength, and helping with balancing the weight. And I know with hypothyroidism, weight gain tends to be one of the big areas. So light weights and light cardio to start off with, I would suggest.
I know you can buy, and I've got one. I bought a pack of weights, if you see what I mean. So it started off with tiny little ones, and then the next one, and you can go right up to the more heavier ones. And they're not heavy by any means, but you know, it's just like holding something, resistance, isn't it? To sort of help your muscles, as far as I'm aware. Anyway, I'm not an expert on it. What have I got here?
Buffalo talks about post-exertional malaise. Have a look at that one.
Okay. I remove. So this lady says, I agree, as feeling cold is a regular problem for my Hashimoto's. It's the degree of coldness. After exercising the shower, I remove the shower head and concentrate on the colder water onto my legs to help my muscles heal, and it works for me. But I don't do extreme cold. Yeah, I think you have to find out what works for you. I mean, I know perhaps I shouldn't say this, but for some people, exercise is a complete no-no because they're just not there yet, you know. And I think you need to be treated in the way that your body needs in terms of treatment, medication. And sometimes it's just you need a little bit more. You know, we were talking earlier with Michael about the TSH being too low, but I know a lot of people come to me and their GPs won't let them go down further than 2.5. But that little bit more going down to 1 can make a huge amount of difference to people. And actually the British Thyroid Association, in their guidance on liothyronine, says that people can now actually go right down to the bottom of the TSH range or a little bit more, but not completely suppressed. So there again, you know, if anybody's struggling with that, just do take a copy of the BTA guidance to your GP to have a chat about a little bit more levothyroxine, because it can make a lot of difference. And if you're met with a barrier with your GP, and I know this sounds sexist, but it's not meant to be, but it works, take someone with you. Take a strong woman with you who can advocate for you. But in a lot of cases, if you take a man with you who advocates for you, your husband or your partner or someone that knows you really well, where they can say, look, this isn't her, she's not getting better, what are you going to do about it? Because I don't know about you, but when you go into the doctor, you kind of go back a bit, you know, it's like they're on a pedestal and you say, oh yes, all right then, oh okay. Whereas really we need to try and be just a little bit firm, not aggressive, just a little bit firm, to ask for things. And sorry to say, but sometimes having a man with you does make the GPs listen just a little bit more. So that's
definitely.
tip.
Definitely. I mean, a couple of I've noticed a couple of posts in the message about post-exercise malaise. My advice with that is generally, I'd say pace yourself. If your body is starting to feel like fatigued, it's feeling like too much. It's just, at the end of the day, with exercise, with hypothyroidism, with all of this, you need to listen to your body. That's the most important thing that I can say with all of this. It's just balancing when you do the activity, if you do the rest, you do strength training. For example, the advised time rest between sets is about 2 minutes. But if you're finding yourself getting too fatigued, take longer. Make sure you're resting your body between those sets. If you're going out for a walk, if you're going out for half an hour, do it in 10-minute intervals. Take 10 minutes, rest for 10 minutes, go for 10 minutes, rest for 10 minutes. It's so important to listen to what your body is saying to you. And obviously I know a lot of people have spoken about the cold water therapy and the shocks and things to the system. I have to say that the cold is something that I haven't actually experienced myself. It's a really strange one, but I'm constantly hot, which is unusual. So I can't say cold works for me, but obviously, as I say, for others who posted in a group, it all depends on what your system and what your body can handle, and the levels of sort of hypothyroidism that you have.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Emma. Thank you. And if anybody's got any more questions, do put them in the chat and I can forward them on to Emma.
Yeah, quite happy to answer any more beyond this. My email's also there as well. So if I haven't answered anything, if I've missed some of the messages and haven't answered anything today, then feel free, please, just to put me an email. I know someone's mentioned something about fitness trackers. They're definitely a good idea of indication of sort of what levels you're working at. Tracking steps, tracks your heart rate, and sort of tracks your energy levels and how far you're pushing. Some of them track, so if you're doing aerobic exercise or anaerobic and things like that, so it can give you a level of where you're sort of working to.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks ever such a lot, Emma, and we'll be in touch again soon.
All right, thanks very much, Lynn.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so our next speaker is Melissa Cohen. Let me just find. So, Melissa, if you've come to any of our webinars before, you will have seen Melissa. She's also spoken at our conference, the last one we had. So Melissa is a nutritional therapist and NLP practitioner. So she's going to speak about kinesiology today. And I said I was going to give you a little story. I had some kinesiology when I was ill with undiagnosed hypothyroidism, and it did help me. But the main thing that I was really actually quite shocked about was that it helped my son. He had a bad experience, and I mean a bad experience. He stayed over at a friend's house one night, and I got a phone call at 10 o'clock, panicked, from the parents, saying that my son was inconsolable and I had to go and get him. And it turned out that in their bedroom, his friend had put the film Arachnophobia on. And from that day onwards, he was dreadful. He wouldn't go into a room on his own unless we'd check for spiders. He wouldn't go in the garden in certain areas. It was horrific, actually, at that time. So I took him to this lady who was a kinesiologist. Now, he was very young, bearing in mind he was about 8. And he didn't really know what was going on when I took him. I just told him he's going to be seeing a nice lady who's going to ask him some questions and things like that. And so she used kinesiology on him. And then we went home. And literally a couple of days later, he called me upstairs and said, "Oh, look, Mummy, there's a spider." And he was looking at this spider and watching this spider move around. And I was absolutely amazed that he could do that. And even, that carried on. It wasn't just a little thing. He's carried on. And from that day, he's not been worried about spiders at all. So I think kinesiology can be very powerful in some areas. So I'm really looking forward to listening to what Melissa has to say. So I'm not sure, is Melissa ready? I've got the timing right, haven't I? Yes. I know she's here.
Well, thank you, Lynn, for inviting me on your webinar. And lovely, sorry guys that I can't see you all, but just a little bit about me. Thanks for the introduction, Lynn, and it's great to hear all these kinesiology stories. So I've been working with Thyroid UK, contributing every quarter to their articles on nutrition. And I've always been interested in what the body wants, because we over intellectualize everything. So, you know, I've worked a lot with thyroid patients, and we constantly talk about TSH and levothyroxine and leukothymine and blood markers, and is it anemia, and is it inflammation, and what else is going on, and all of these are really relevant. And sometimes it's almost like the body holds on to stress. So I'm going to take you on a bit of a journey and explain what that means. And, you know, so when I'm having a consultation with a client, I can over intellectualize and the client can over intellectualize. And I think the most easiest way of kind of saying it is, you know, when someone says, "Hi, how are you?" You say, "I'm fine, thanks. How are you?" But sometimes we're not fine. And most times we are, but sometimes we're not. And then sometimes we don't even realize that we're not. So let me talk you through this. Okay, so in kinesiology, it's all about energy. So for if you can just put the allopathic and blood testing on the side for now. And anybody that's done acupuncture will notice this diagram that I've got here of, I notice my cursor's not showing on the screen, and you've got all these lines going through the body, and these are like acupressure points where your acupuncturist will release energy. So energy is something that you can't see, which we'll talk about, but we can feel, can't we? We feel when we're energized, and we feel when we're passionate or when we're excited about something. So traditional Chinese medicine is such a unique wisdom. It's a 3,000-year-old medicinal fountain of knowledge. And the Chinese medicine practitioners always work with our energy meridian lines. So if you can imagine, we've got these invisible superhighway forces around the body that carry energy to every organ of the body, and our muscles and our tissues and even our emotions. So the Chinese medicine model is all about, so very much similar to what Lynn was saying, her son had this sort of arachnophobia, you know, this fear of spiders, and you can lock that fear in. And what kinesiology does is find where that fear is locked in and release it. It sounds very simplistic, but it is. So, and I'll talk how kinesiologists work. So I've just about completing my foundation in kinesiology, and I find it a beautiful modality to work with nutrition. So as long with the bloods and the functional testing and the case taking, sometimes it's really nice to just get on the bed and let somebody do some muscle testing and find out where the blockages are. And then 10 times out of 10, people come off that bed feeling much more relaxed and much more at ease. So these meridian lines that you're seeing in the body, one of these meridian lines that go from the ring finger all the way up to the eyebrow, so I've got a better diagram on here, is known as the triple warmer meridian. And the triple warmer meridian is linked to the thyroid. And it does make sense, because triple warmer is all about adrenals, thyroid and sex hormones, hence the triple. And this energy line runs from your ring finger all the way to your eyebrow. So think of it like a control center, a control superhighway to make sure that your temperature is okay and your body's distributing the energy effectively. Absolutely, the thyroid does that. The thyroid is the regulator. It's the thermostat in the body, but the energy flow has to move around as well. So here's a really nice diagram that you can see. It starts from the finger and it goes round the ear and to the eyebrow. And this is thousands and thousands of years old, ancient wisdom. And it's something that I'm finding really interesting and noticing a really insightful medicine, and really complementary as well to the allopathic medicine. And you have meridian lines on either side, so it's both sides of the body. So it helps support metabolism, especially when we're in that fight and flight, which I'll be discussing, which I'm sure you're all aware of. We can just get in this fight or flight stress mode, and that impacts the thyroid, because the pituitary gland in the brain not only controls the thyroid, but also controls our stress hormone and also controls our sex hormones. So when everything's completely, let's say the pedals on and we're completely full throttle, really stressed, those three elements can become impacted. So this meridian line, this energy line linked to the thyroid, is all about fire and enthusiasm, vitality and warmth. And also, interestingly, Chinese medicine also looks at the thyroid as expression. So there is also a modality of thought that if we are inhibiting our views and we're not that vocal and we're suppressing, that can impact the thyroid as well. So this is where the body can release all of this tension. So it's all about fire and enthusiasm and vitality and warmth, but we don't want to burn all of this up. We don't want to have so much vitality, so much passion that it leads to irritability and impatience. And we don't want so little energy where it just leads to feelings of coldness and emptiness and flatness. And usually when there is a lack of energy within the Chinese medicine model, within the kinesiology, it really means there's a blockage somewhere on that meridian line from the ring finger to the eyebrow. Now, if you could see me, picture that you can see me, and if you can picture somebody running their finger, not touching the body, but running their finger from that ring finger, just let's say an inch from the body, so not touching, and then going all the way to the eyebrow. In fact, you do touch the first point of the meridian line, which is the ring finger, and then trace it all the way round the ear and then touch the eyebrow. And I've had this done to me, and you can actually feel like a nice tingling sensation. I encourage you to try this with your partners and your friends, and you can just lie down and get them to trace the meridian line from your ring finger over the ear and to touch the eyebrow, and to do that probably about 10 times on each side. And that's called running the meridian line. So every meridian line, so that meridian line from the ring finger to the eyebrow, is all linked to the muscles. And this muscle, bit of physiology, is called the teres minor muscle, which is located around the shoulder. So every emotion is linked to a muscle, is linked to an organ. And very much the Chinese medicine model is all about what are you feeling, what are your symptoms, how are you expressing it, and then based on that, a kinesiologist will muscle test that particular muscle. So this particular muscle is called the teres minor muscle. And let's say, for example, if you're interested in seeing how your thyroid is on a Chinese medicine model, there'll be a certain muscle test that will see how this teres minor muscle is responding. So what are the indications that you may have? And bloods could be fine. You might be subclinical hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism and on medication. It doesn't matter. Kinesiology works really well alongside this because it's just a very different way of managing energy. So shoulder problems, we all have that weight on our shoulders. And excessive weight on our shoulders due to procrastination and stress and overutilizing the adrenals, etc. And that will impact the thyroid, and other expressions are weight changes, metabolism, excess emotions. So too little thyroid empty, too much thyroid irritability, shakiness, palpitations, and just generally that feeling of overwhelm. Even if your thyroid is beautifully balanced, just managing somebody's stress, which is on this meridian line, just this feeling of overwhelm, and can actually lead to almost like a paralysis where you just don't know which way to turn. And just manipulating this muscle really is a beautiful way of balancing energy. So what do I mean when manipulating muscle? So you can see in the middle picture here, there's a kinesiologist in the blue shirt, and the patient's lying down, and the kinesiologist is very, very gently pushing their forearm towards their body. So, and the the practitioner, the client then has to resist it. So it's all about how much you can resist the pressure of a practitioner. It's not about muscle and strength. It's all about your energy on that particular day, how much you can push against the practitioner's hand, and then the practitioner, through kinesiology, can figure out whether is it nutrition that muscle meridian wants, is it emotion, is it hydration, electrical. So if you think of electrical in the heart needing magnesium and potassium and sodium, or is it structure? So if it's structure, there's something called lymphatic massage that you all may have heard of. And this is used in kinesiology to stimulate the waste, the flow of the waste from the organ. So lymph actually gets rid of toxins and also sends white blood cells to where it needs to go to fight infection. So the lymph is really important for drainage and clearing out toxins. And I encourage you, I wish I could see you, but I encourage you, if you can put your hand, your fingers just near the side of your shoulder, and if you rub that area, it's actually quite painful. It's the main area where the lymph actually drains. And so kinesiology is not just about muscle testing and nutrition, it's also about stimulating the lymph flow. And depending on how weak or strong that muscle is, will enable a practitioner to give you the best protocol. So it's a lot to get your head around, because I come from a science background, and with Western allopathic medicine, it's kind of really far from simple in a sense. But if your bloods are saying something, and I know it's exacerbating especially for thyroid, because you could have a great TSH and let's say, for example, you're lucky enough to get your T3 levels checked and your antibodies and everything's in line, and you still don't feel great. So in the allopathic world, it's, well, you're doing fine, but that doesn't mean that you feel fine. And I think that's really the best way to be, is to not wait for your blood markers to be out of range, but to check in with, what is my energy? How am I feeling? You know, am I able to walk? Am I able to do the exercise that I want to do? Are my joints hurting? What's my mood like? Is my metabolism changed? All these things that cost us nothing, that we can check in with our body. And even if you are on thyroid medication, even better, you can support yourself with kinesiology, and by checking in on yourself and asking yourself some key questions, such as, how am I sleeping? Am I refreshed when I wake up? Am I able to do the walks that I used to walk? Am I able to lift the weights that I used to lift? Or simplistically, am I able to enjoy what I would want to enjoy? So Western medicine is very much what can be seen, what can be measured, what can be scanned, what can be treated, whereas the Chinese medicine is all about the energy, the energetic resonance of a person that can be mapped, but we won't be discussing that today. But you can feel it. You know, we can feel tingling, we can feel excitement, we can feel when somebody comes into the room, what we feel about them. Are they quite an energetic person? Or we can feel when the energy drops in the room, especially at the end of the day. And plant-based medicine is really on point right now. A lot of people are going back to plant-based medicine and looking at ways to complement their medicine and or if they're not on medication, to support their well-being. So let's go back to the triple warmer. This is the meridian line, remember, that runs from the finger right through to the eyebrow. And this is a picture of a woman here lying on a bed in the tree pose. If any of you do yoga, she's lying on the bed in a tree pose, or if any of you like ballet, kind of in a pirouette lying down. This practitioner is gently pulling her leg. She's resisting to see how easy it is to pull her foot down to meet the rest of her body. So this triple warmer is the body's energy flow, managing hormones, and it's almost like a built-in alarm. If there is an energy blockage, so looking at this woman, let's say, for example, the practitioner, if she can easily pull this lady's leg, and this patient on the bed has no energy or no resistance, then we know there's something blocking on that meridian line. And then it's a really beautiful modality to find out what supplements the body needs, whether there's more lymphatic massage that needs to take place, whether there's an emotional element to it. So emotions that are linked to the thyroid, as explained before, are lack of speech, lack of expression, overexcitability, very much linked to the adrenals. So from my experience as a nutritional practitioner, I often see women when they reach a certain age, their thyroid may slow down, or when they go through a lot of stress and their adrenals are compromised, the thyroid is compromised. So it's almost like a traffic jam. And we want to clear this traffic jam, and we clear it by releasing emotional tension. And I'm going to talk you through that, which is going to be difficult through this black space, but I'm going to do my best, because I had some demonstrations that I was going to show you. But just holding on to certain points in the body, even if you're not expressing, can really help release that emotional tension, that heaviness that we feel. It's like talking to a good friend and we walk away and we just walk out feeling much, much lighter. So I'm going to be going through that. So just to recap, meridians are our energy, and they go backwards and forwards, and they flow energy into our muscles and into our organs and help regulate hormones. And these symptoms are, we all know them, where we're constantly on edge, or we overreact to things that we shouldn't be reacting to, like if we're running late, or if somebody has a different opinion to us and we over stress, or we can't switch off. We're tired and we're wired. Tension in the shoulders, the neck, the jaw. Cold hands and feet, yes, it's the thyroid, but also think of the energy flow around the body as well. Even rubbing hands really hard and holding them up to your face. I hope you can hear this, like rubbing hands, you can feel the heat, and just tracing the meridian lines will really help the body's metabolism. So other areas with the triple warmer in this meridian line, and of course it's very much linked to thyroid, is when everything slows down, bloating, constipation, indigestion, can't absorb as effectively. But also that could be due to the adrenals as well, because when we're in this fight or flight, if we can't release a tension, maybe the muscles are tight, or maybe we're holding on to an emotion that doesn't serve us anymore. As Lynn's story of her son, his adrenals were so fixated on arachnophobia, there was just a tension there. But when the kinesiologist worked with him, it released all of that tension, and that emotional pull just went. And ongoing, all of that can actually really impact the digestive system, because of that rest and digest state that we want to be in all the time. If this is not kept into check, burnout can be expressed, constant fatigue. And the last hormones really that are neglected by the body, as well as the poor thyroid, are sex hormones such as estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. And then the immune system can be impacted. So we have these really lovely points called neurovascular points, which are mainly on the head, and the lymphatic points, which I explained were just near the breastbone and on the back near the shoulder bone, that you can just dig in and just rub between those two ribs near the breastbone to help remove lymph. And you can feel it will be slightly painful, but the more you rub this area, the less painful it will be, and the more you can increase the lymph flow. But just going back to that slide, also there's the rebounder trampolines that are fantastic for lymph, where you can just jump on these trampolines and keep them in the house. They're only small. This is a diagram that I'm not going to go through massively, but it just shows you that there's a center in the brain called the hypothalamus that communicates with the pituitary, and then that gets really busy, the pituitary gland. It's the major hormone gland, communicates with the thyroid, it communicates with the adrenals, it communicates with our sex hormones. So if you can imagine, all of these meridian lines are blocked, inflammation can start, and this can impact the physiology of the body. So muscle testing is a really simple way to find out how the body responds to certain supplements. Let's start with that. So we saw a lady lying down with her in the tree shape doing a yoga position lying down, and we saw somebody with his forearm slightly out and a practitioner trying to press the forearm back into the body. And this is a very gentle muscle test to see how the body is responding to different foods. So a kinesiologist will apply gentle pressure and you won't really feel it. You'd just be lying there on the bed, letting the practitioner test all your muscles. And then if the muscle's weak, the practitioner will find out if there's an emotional element there, a nutritional element, a hydration, electrical element, or a structure. If the muscle remains strong, it means that the body, there's no tension, there's no support needed. Or if the muscle gains strength after being weak, it means that the support that you've given the body through nutrition or through emotional support means that it has been fixed for now. So muscle testing helps identify what the body needs right now and can really help balance the body. It's a very quick, cost-effective, painless way to support a person. That's why I like it. I think it works best with other combinations. So I know osteopaths use kinesiology for structural work and chiropractors, nutritional therapists such as myself and naturopaths and herbalists. It's a really quick way, especially to get remedies ready, especially if you don't particularly want to go through a whole comprehensive case taking, you just want to do some kinesiology work, then a practitioner can work really well and help support you nutritionally through supplements. I just have to state it's not a substitute for a medical diagnosis, but more of a way to understand what your body needs right now from an energetic point of view. So just to go through some supplementations, which I'm sure you're all aware of, to help reduce inflammation and to support the nervous system. So ashwagandha and rhodiola are really lovely plant-based medicines that really immediately help support stress and help support the adrenals. So if you can imagine, I like to think of this analogy that you have, let's say, a swimming pool, let's say a big paddling pool in the garden, and let's say all the stress is the water leaking out and all the holes are coming in this pool and the water's leaking out. And even if you have the best diet in the world, it's not going to be enough because the water's completely leaking out. So the whole kind of building block on all of these imbalances in the body, particularly the thyroid, is managing stress, because we saw in that diagram how much it's linked to the adrenals. So most of my clients have experienced a huge amount of stress and then thyroid issues, and that's no coincidence. So ashwagandha almost is like a shortcut to help the body modulate stress. In other words, calm that cortisol down. And it tells the brain, a little bit like meditation and breath work, that everything's fine. It stops the pituitary gland stimulating the adrenals. It tells the control center in the brain that everything's okay. And while you're taking these adaptogens, it gives you a chance to do the work, get some kinesiology, take some time to journal and really understand what's happening on an emotional aspect in the body. And also that emotional aspect will then reduce any inflammation. Magnesium's really important. Magnesium's needed for hundreds of metabolic reactions in the body that happened every second of the day. So you can imagine ending up millions of reactions in the body every day. And therefore, it just helps calm the nervous system. We need magnesium for GABA. We need magnesium for our bones and to metabolize food into energy. And we've got pantothenic acid, B5 and B6, really important for mental health and energy metabolism as well. Omega-3 fatty acids are excellent sources of fats to reduce inflammation. They support the brain. The brain is mainly fat as well. And we have these myelin sheaths that also cover our neurons that help communication. And these neurons help dictate our mood, our serotonin, how much reward we're getting from life. And as I said, also reduce inflammation. L-theanine is beautiful. It's a beautiful component from green tea that helps produce GABA, and that really helps with mental clarity and also helps relax without the drowsiness. And then lastly, we can get a lot of these through herbal teas. So chamomile and lemon balm and licorice root. Licorice root, be careful if you're prone to hypertension. If not, licorice root's really great for sugar cravings and increasing energy. Lemon balm and L-theanine work together really well to promote calmness and clarity. And chamomile is just a lovely flower herb that really helps with relaxation. So let me just talk to you about these neurovascular points. So if you can imagine, you're putting your hands in your forehead really heavily now. Every time we're worried, we might lean on our hands and put them in our forehead. But if you raise your two fingers between your eyebrows and your hairline and just ever so lightly, like butterfly pressure, just hold on to your forehead, and just maybe do that while you're doing some breath work, will really help release tension along that triple warmer meridian linking to the thyroid. There's also the top of the skull, and there's a picture of a baby, the fontanelle, the part of the skull that's really soft when the baby's born. And so right at the top, if you can put two fingers there, that really helps a form of bliss. You might need to try this maybe offline when you're not concentrating and just touch it ever so lightly. And if you hold these points for 2 to 3 minutes, anytime that you're feeling overwhelmed or there's a high tension, it really does help to reduce this. So there's the baby's head. So it says small circular motions, feather-like touch, and really helps to relieve stress. So it's beautiful for babies' kinesiology, and children, especially children, can be quite overwhelmed if they see a counsellor, psychotherapy. Kinesiology is a really gentle way of releasing that tension from the body. Also, there's an immediate stress release if the web between the thumb and the index finger, and just gently pinch that spot just to release the tension anytime you're feeling very stressed as well. So there's all these different pressure points that you can use and take home to your loved ones, and even do that to them if they're talking and they're stressed. You can just place 2 fingers on their forehead or on top of their head on their fontanelle. So that ties up that presentation. I do apologise that you can't see me. If you're ever in London or you'd like to see me over Zoom, I'd love to meet you and provide a kinesiology session with nutrition. But for now, start by practicing simple acupressure holds, either light feather touch on your forehead or trace your meridian line from your index finger all the way around the ear, and then touch and finish with the eyebrow. Explore muscle testing with a qualified practitioner. You might want to see somebody locally in your area, and just out of interest to see what your body needs. Just go forward. Thank you for listening. I'd love to hear what you've taken away from this talk. Feel free to share your thoughts, and I'm happy to meet you in the chat.
Okay. Thank you so much, and I'm just so sorry we can't see you. I have checked this end, and you are down as presenter, so I'm not quite sure what happened there.
I'm not sure.
But we could just, if I go through some of the questions,
Sure.
Let's have a look. So we did that. Someone has said, funny, I love sleeping in this position. I take it that's the lady. I'm not sure. I take it's the lady that had her leg bent, perhaps.
Oh, okay. Oh, that is nice position. Yes. Yeah, like the tree pose.
Someone's asked a personal question. I'm not quite sure whether to ask you that or not. It's about hypothyroidism.
I can try.
Okay. It just says, does Melissa have hypothyroidism too?
Okay, no, I'm happy to answer no, but I had subclinical hypothyroidism. Funnily enough, after I got involved with Thyroid UK, I recognised the signs, and my TSH was quite high. So I do know the feeling, just subclinical, and I didn't feel great. And so no, I don't. I nipped it in the bud, but I know, and I know everybody's levels are so different. You know, people thrive on different levels.
That's right. Yeah, and that's the issue we have with ranges. You know,
yeah,
so like the B12 range is very wide, and somebody might feel brilliant at a low level.
I know.
But other people really need it to be a high level, and it's so wide.
I know.
It's ridiculous.
And then the doctors say, stop eating protein. It's crazy. You're eating too much protein.
So someone has pointed out that you should test first for deficiencies before you take supplements. Sometimes that's easy to do, but I'm not sure that all of them are very, I mean, some of them you can get done by your GP.
Yeah.
But I think some you can't.
Yeah, I think you can't test for everything. You know, you can't test for ashwagandha and lemon. You can test for vitamin D and B12 and iron. But if you think about it, the minerals are stored in the bone. So it's going to be very rare that you'll have a zinc imbalance or a calcium imbalance, because the heart will take that and the bone over precedence. So don't just think that. It's really important to know the body will overcompensate to make sure that your heart still works and you've got enough minerals for the bone.
Yeah, I mean, Michael, I don't know if you saw Michael's talk.
I only saw the end, unfortunately.
Honestly, I don't know how he was walking around at the level that he was. So obviously somehow in his body was compensating a lot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what I often tell people is give it a try. Don't take huge amounts, massive amounts, just try and see how you go. But if you start to feel ill in any way, then stop taking whatever it is that you're trying. Vitamin D can be a bit, you have to be careful with vitamin D. I know that.
You do. Yeah, you do. Vitamin D gets stored in the liver. So it's a fat soluble vitamin, and you can get vitamin D toxicity. So yes. But and most of the vitamins are water soluble, vitamin B and C. It's just the A, D, E, and K. And then the minerals, it's very hard to test for.
Yeah.
You know, and if you think of zinc's really, really needed for the thyroid as well.
Yeah.
And I would say probably 10% of people have low zinc on their blood tests because the body will overcompensate.
Yeah.
Very rarely will you have a low zinc level.
Yeah. The next question is, any adverse interactions between ashwagandha and levothyroxine? Now, I asked a question, I think I answered a question about this week, about ashwagandha.
What are your views?
I'm trying to, I just have a look, because I did look it up. It shouldn't take me a minute just to find the word ashwagandha in my emails. It seems that ashwagandha can increase T4 levels. So I'm guessing if you're subclinical, that might be what you need. But I think if you're hyper, it might not be a good idea to take it.
Yeah, I think there's no specific scientific research to say don't take ashwagandha if you're taking levothyroxine. And you know, maybe if you're interested and if you're feeling stressed and you're on levothyroxine, maybe get a little tincture so you can dilute it rather than a capsule, and just take a fraction of the amount and a little bit of water.
Yeah, I mean, basically, with taking things with levothyroxine, I find it's always better not to take anything with your levothyroxine immediately, but do it later.
Oh no, I agree.
Yeah.
I meant if you're on medication.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
But I think somebody put something there. So what's the next one? So this lady has said, I don't think so. I've taken ashwagandha alongside levo many times. So she's obviously all right.
Yeah, there's
Can you get green tea without caffeine?
You can get decaffeinated green tea. And it's a really good question to get that L-theanine, but you've still got a little bit of caffeine in there. If you're interested in theanine, you can get capsules. I know Viridian do a really nice one. Viridian do a really nice lemon balm and L-theanine.
Oh, right, okay. My worry about green tea is that it has fluoride in it. And we know that we have to be careful with fluoride for people with hypothyroidism.
Yes.
Any help for thyroid and sugar diabetic interactions?
So diabetes and thyroid. Well, yes, but that's a
whole other story, isn't it?
That's a whole other story. So stress is really, so if you're on diabetic medication at the moment, let's say metformin, then you really need to support that metformin. So diet wise, your friends are the unsaturated fats, the olive oils, the oily fish, the avocados, to try and I'm assuming you're diabetic type 2. It's diabetic type 1, it's different, that's autoimmune.
Yeah. Okay, the next one is, do you know a good kinesiologist in Suffolk? Probably not, but I would say go to Bant. They might be able to find someone there.
They might be. Yeah, a lot of nutritionists are kinesiologists as well.
Yeah. I can't remember what Bant stands for, Melissa.
British Association of Nutritional Therapists.
Yeah. So if you go to their website, I think there's a search function there, I think, where you can look for certain things on there. Someone said, all very interesting and hadn't heard of this before, so that's good.
Great.
Thanks so much, Melissa. That was really interesting and useful. Look forward to trying out some of these techniques. And there's a few more thank yous before that. I have to go, unfortunately, but thank you so much, Lynn and Heidi, for organising all this. Oh, that's nice. Thank you for very useful information. That was very interesting. Thank you, Melissa. More interesting. Thank yous. I know kinesiologists in Leicester and Malvern, if that's of use to anyone. Thank you. Yeah, there's lots of thank you.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
The tree leg, yes. Okay. Does the muscle testing usually involve one session?
Good question. Yeah, you can just have one session. Absolutely. You might need a few sessions, but yeah, you can do all the muscles in one session.
Okay. This is really interesting. Please, can you have your details in order to contact you for help?
I can just put my details in the chat now.
Yeah, if you do that, thank you.
And I will just put my email address in. But if you Google Melissa Cohen Nutrition, you'll find me.
Yeah. There's more people that want to contact you, so that'll be good. Are you accepting new clients currently? Do you know any kinesiologists in the northern area that you can recommend? So
that would be Bant, wouldn't it? Again, if you look for the north of England.
Yeah. Are you accepting new clients currently, though? I imagine you are.
There's probably been about 3 weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can book something in for, where are we? Maybe end of June.
Yeah. Okie dokie. Why did the doctor tell you to stop eating protein, Melissa?
Oh no, they've told some of my clients this because B12 is found in protein.
Yeah.
So
stop eating red meat.
Yeah, so the GPs will say maybe you're eating too much protein, which is not really the answer.
Yeah. I know, just a quick story. My husband was taking, oh crikey, what's it called? It's multivitamins and minerals in the tube, Barocca.
Okay.
And he thought he would start doing that, just to help. He wasn't feeling ill or anything. He just thought it was a good thing to do.
Not? Yeah.
And he overloaded on iron. He had a funny turn, went to the hospital, and his iron was massive. So you do have to be careful about these things if you don't need it.
Just one Barocca a day?
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah. He obviously, stores iron better than other people, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, his ferritin maybe was very high.
Yeah, it might have been.
But sometimes, I know we're kind of staying off the subject, but sometimes when your ferritin is high, it's because there's an infection in the body.
Yeah.
And the iron feeds the infection, the virus, the bacteria. So the body stores iron, it doesn't utilize it.
Yeah. Yeah, all these things. What level would you be to get vitamin D toxicity?
Oh, do you know, that's a really good question. I don't know is the answer. I would say it would probably have to be over 200, 250. But I would say a good level would be around 100.
Yeah, okay. Lady said, I have worked with Melissa and can highly recommend. That's Fiona. I don't know.
Hi, Fiona.
Yes, I have silly high ferritin, but iron's fine. Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's the thing. The ferritin gets stored in the body, finding for usually some infection.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's everything now. So we're going to break now for refreshment. But thank you so much, Melissa. That was really interesting. As usual, your talks are always very interesting.
Thank you for having me. Lovely to be here now.
So our next speaker, so to say, is Rachel Hill, although she's not here in the flesh. She's having a lovely holiday. I'm not jealous at all. She's created a video for us, and I think you'll find it interesting. Rachel is a best-selling author and multi-award winning thyroid patient advocate, content creator, and speaker. I think she's the invisible hypothyroidism lady, and she has some really interesting things to say. This time she's talking about navigating fertility and pregnancy with hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's. My screen's just gone black. Come on, come back. Thank you. Not enough is talked about this topic, so this is a good opportunity for us to learn and spread the word. I mean, it would be handy, perhaps not for some of us now, but for our girl children who may be thinking about having a baby, and they need to make sure that they get tested before they start thinking about that. Right, so I'm just going to try and do this. So it says to share.
Hello everyone, welcome to this talk by myself, Rachel Hill, also known as the Invisible Hypothyroidism online. I'm here talking for Thyroid UK's International Thyroid Awareness Week 2025 event. This is pre-recorded, and if you catch me looking down, it's because I'm just looking at my notes to make sure I cover everything I want to cover here today. So I'm here today to talk about my personal journey with hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's, especially when it came to my personal experiences of starting a family whilst also having a thyroid condition. So, first of all, who am I? I am a multi-award winning thyroid patient health advocate. I'm a writer, a speaker, an author, a content creator, and through all of this, I have created 4 books. I've been involved in thyroid health advocacy since 2015, so this year marks 10 years since my own thyroid diagnosis and 10 years since I started sharing my experiences online and connecting thyroid patients together and raising that awareness in our thyroid space. For many years, I had unexplained ongoing fatigue, hair loss, muscle aches and pains, migraines, acid reflux, mountain symptoms, which I know will be familiar to a lot of you, which eventually led me to that diagnosis of hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's. And I know, again, that this is a really common experience. Being a thyroid patient advocate means that I openly share my real experiences of having thyroid issues, and I also work to improve the awareness around signs, symptoms, testing, as well as treatment options for thyroid conditions. Primarily hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's, because again, that's what I personally have experience of. And my foundations are in sharing from a personal experiences kind of place. I have a very busy thyroid community online, particularly on social media. I create videos and posts, I do live Q&As, I get involved with events like this, and I also write a weekly email newsletter about living with thyroid conditions that is also hosted on Substack, which is a platform some of you might be becoming aware of as well. I have written books to help other thyroid patients, as previously mentioned, with this wealth of knowledge that I have gained through my own personal research, my own experiences of navigating the healthcare system, NHS, private doctors as well, and really through navigating the different life stages. So I had symptoms from being a child, but particularly as a teenager, diagnosed in my early 20s. I went through a good 5 years or so of getting that sort of in a good place and under control. And then I embarked on wanting to start a family, and now I'm in that parenting phase. And so I share my whole journey of having thyroid conditions through all of these life stages in the hopes that it will reach the right people and help them know that they are not alone. A lot of us are going through this, and that by sharing what we experience along the way, we can definitely help each other. So the topic of my latest book, which was released last month on the 1st of April, was fertility, pregnancy and parenting with thyroid disease. And this is going to form the basis of this presentation for Thyroid UK's event. So, what's my experience of thyroid disease? Well, symptoms began when I was a child. I had chronic constipation, fatigue, headaches, deep muscle pains in my legs, particularly after a long day, that were kind of going unexplained for years. I was told that I was just lazy or that I was just having growing pains, and so it was a good while longer until I was diagnosed. In fact, I endured my whole teenager years feeling incredibly fatigued, slowed down, achy, with extremely heavy and disruptive menstrual cycles too. In fact, I spent my 18th birthday in the ICU, so in the intensive care unit, with pneumonia, following worsening health and an immune system that was just struggling to fight anything off. Due to the amount of both physical and mental stress that I was experiencing at the time, due to a very unhealthy home environment that I was unfortunately brought up in, which all definitely did not help the triggering of my thyroid condition, which I know, again, will be a familiar story to many of you. I left hospital after my 18th birthday and continued to experience these symptoms of fatigue, muscle pain, but then also weight fluctuations of weight loss and weight gain. Migraines started, leg cramps. I started to develop severe cystic acne all around sort of this portion of my face. And this continued for another 4 or 5 years or so. By the time I was actually diagnosed with autoimmune hypothyroidism at 21, I felt like I'd lost years of my life to ill health. I felt like my childhood and teenage years had been taken away from me, really. And by the time I was diagnosed, my health was in such a terrible place that I was in a really bad state, barely able to work. I was bedbound, and some days I remember recording that I felt like a 91-year-old in a 21-year-old's body. In short, I have not had an easy ride with thyroid disease, and I know this is not an uncommon story. My story is by no means unique. Many of you here today will be nodding along and will have had a similar journey with this too. So it was at this time that I started recording and blogging about my experiences as a thyroid patient online. I set up the invisiblehypothyroidism.com, which is my website, it's still active today, and began blogging about all my experiences, the trials, the tribulations of getting diagnosed, trying different thyroid medications and medications for all the other symptoms. And I immediately felt touched by the amount of thyroid patients reaching out to say they were having the same kind of experiences. It felt bittersweet because I would much rather we don't have these shared hard experiences, but at the same time, there's something so powerful about us connecting with each other. And so I just knew that I had to keep going with doing this. To hear that sharing my ups and downs and being honest with it all was with getting my health condition managed was helping others, this gave me the passion to keep on going and to keep on doing it. And that's why I'm still doing it 10 years later. So I continued to share what was and wasn't helping me while on this path to regain my health. I made different lifestyle changes, such as changing my diet, going gluten-free, for example, changing my exercise, investigating which supplements might help me, but also in changing thyroid medication type and discovering that many doctors weren't testing the full thyroid panel or the thyroid function test, but that they were just testing TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. And then going beyond there to discovering that optimal test results and optimal thyroid levels are even more specific than just falling within quite a wide range, and how this could impact my health and get me on that path to recovery to where I am today. The key message in amongst learning all of this was really clear to me. We have to be our own thyroid advocate to get anywhere. Understanding your thyroid condition, what it means, what tests to check, what results to aim for, what questions to ask, what other thyroid jigsaw puzzle pieces could be involved, such as low vitamin levels, poor gut health, food sensitivities, over-exercising, and more was really, really crucial. I shared my experiences with learning and implementing all of this online before condensing it into a book too. Be Your Own Thyroid Advocate was born. A story of my time as a young person, undiagnosed, navigating a diagnosis, and then wondering what on earth I was supposed to do once I had that diagnosis. I felt confused, overwhelmed, and frustrated. So this book, Be Your Own Thyroid Advocate, covers the many jigsaw puzzle pieces that we can slot into place when we have hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's and are on medication but are still just not yet feeling better. The feedback I received was again bittersweet because it helped so many people recover their health just as I had done, but the stories I received could be really, really heartbreaking. This book was written for the newly diagnosed. It was the book that I wish I had when I was newly diagnosed. And I really wanted to deliver what was missing in that sense, and to connect with other thyroid patients in a way that they could hopefully get the thyroid information that they needed, even though brain fogged and fatigued. So cutting out all the jargon and technical knowledge that we don't necessarily need to know. After I released this book, where did I go from here? And this is how we're going to get onto the topic of today's presentation. So at the time of writing Be Your Own Thyroid Advocate, I was still experiencing irregular periods, cystic acne, extremely heavy and painful periods, and I was not regularly ovulating. I knew I wanted to start a family within the next few years, ideally, so these symptoms concerned me. As someone who always likes to plan ahead, I knew that this would be something I would be better off addressing now, so that when I was ready in the next few years, I wouldn't have those stumbling blocks in the way. In 2018, when I attempted to start a family, I actually fell pregnant, only to miscarry soon after. And this was a really heartbreaking experience. I mean, like many of you, I knew the statistics that women with hypothyroidism are more likely to experience a pregnancy loss. But I told myself that that wouldn't happen to me. Surely not. And then it did. I found out from a blood test taken just after I'd miscarried that my free T4 level, the main thyroid hormone, had dropped below the bottom of the range. Something I had not checked recently before trying to conceive. So could this have been the cause for the miscarriage? Or at least been a contributing factor? Here started my journey with exploring how my fertility had been impacted by my thyroid condition and what I could do about it. Here's a picture of my eldest now. He's actually 5 now, but he's a tiny baby there. So my periods after the miscarriage took 9 months to settle back to any sense of regularity, which was surprising. I didn't expect it to take that long. I'd had an early miscarriage about 6 weeks in, but perhaps this is due to having a thyroid condition. It really did take my body a long time to settle, and this was also quite a hard experience to go through as well. During these 9 months or so, I was not ovulating predictably. My physical health had taken a flare up and my thyroid symptoms were through the roof. My health felt all over the place. So I decided that instead of trying to rush into trying to conceive again, I would allow my body time to settle, my periods to become more predictable as a sign of me then being more fertile, I suppose, and that I would use this time to research as much as I could and implement as much as I could before trying to conceive again. I wanted to optimize my health as much as possible this next time around. If I could avoid another miscarriage, then I wanted to, or at least reduce my chances of. And obviously, it is worth mentioning here that we do not know all the causes behind miscarriages. There are many different causes or contributing factors, and we cannot prevent them all. There's an element of control here that we can slip into. And I guess I just wanted to feel like that I was in control of the things I could be, or that I wanted to take the steps I felt I could to at least try and control certain aspects and feel like I was doing as much as I could. So I spent 14 months following my miscarriage, diving into research, books, guidelines, studies, advice, talking to thyroid experts in order to optimize my health and learn about all the many things I could do to increase my chances of becoming a mum whilst having a thyroid condition. And then thankfully, when I tried to conceive again, 14 months after that miscarriage, and with my health in the best place it had actually been, thanks to all of the things I implemented and learnt about, I fell pregnant immediately. And once again, it stuck. And it stayed stuck this time. In 2020, I welcomed my healthy baby boy, who, like I say, is 5 years old and thriving now and keeping me very busy. And then when I wanted to try and conceive again in 2021, 18 months after the birth of my first child, I fell pregnant easily once more, and I had another healthy baby, which I feel very blessed for. So what did I learn in those 14 months of research, and what helped me to improve my chances of having a healthy conception and pregnancy following this pregnancy loss with thyroid issues? This is what I've shared online throughout my journey and what I have now condensed into my latest book, the Positive Thyroid Pregnancy book, which was released last month. There it is. So yes, thyroid function and fertility are closely linked. Abnormal thyroid hormone levels in women can lead to miscarriage, preeclampsia, depression, anxiety before and during pregnancy, low birth weight, the baby being admitted to the NICU, anemia in pregnant women, stillbirth, and the baby being born with congenital hypothyroidism or developmental delays if hypothyroidism is severely undertreated and not well managed. These risks are anxiety-inducing, and so understandably, it helps us to understand where they come from and what we can do to minimize those risks. Thyroid hormones directly affect the uterine lining, which can cause infertility or miscarriages to occur when thyroid hormones are not normal. As well as complications during pregnancy, some women with low thyroid hormone levels may struggle to fall pregnant at all. Hormones TSH and TRH are increased when thyroid hormones such as free T3 and free T4 fall too low. TRH stimulates the pituitary gland to release TSH, which then instructs the thyroid gland to release more thyroid hormones, T3 and T4. T4 is our store thyroid hormone and T3 is the active thyroid hormone. So therefore, infertility can occur when TRH, which is also responsible for stimulating the pituitary gland to release prolactin, causes this increased prolactin to interfere with us ovulating, which can happen when thyroid hormones are low. The increased prolactin can prevent the ovaries from releasing an egg each month, which can then make it impossible to conceive, because if you don't ovulate, you can't fall pregnant naturally. This is what was happening to me. I was tracking my cycles and it was hard to see if I was ovulating some months. Some months I could tell I wasn't ovulating at all. My cycles were all over the place, and understanding your cycles is just one piece of this big puzzle. So, ensuring that your thyroid hormone levels are optimized, especially when you have hypothyroidism, is crucial if you are wanting to fall pregnant, to start a family, or expand your family. For women with a known thyroid condition, it's not recommended that we try to conceive unless we know that our thyroid hormone levels are optimized. Not doing so risks infertility, pregnancy loss, and complications should you fall pregnant, especially since the embryo or fetus requires thyroid hormone very early on and does not develop its own thyroid until at least the end of the first trimester. So that is a long time that growing baby is dependent on your thyroid hormone supply. So it's crucial that you have enough yourself. A study also found that among women with diminished ovarian reserve or unexplained fertility, low free T3 levels and positive thyroid antibodies are actually associated with a low antral follicle count. And additionally, if you have the autoimmune condition Hashimoto's, then the antibodies from this may be a cause for concern too. We want to keep a check on adequately managing your antibodies, if at all possible, since some experts say that thyroid antibodies could cross the human placenta and attack the growing baby's thyroid gland too. We need more research on this, but it's a sensible place to start. Research has shown that high levels of thyroid peroxidase antibodies increase the risk of premature births, so keeping Hashimoto's well controlled, if at all possible, can be helpful. Many of us do have both hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's, such as myself, so keeping in mind the management of both of these for your fertility and pregnancy and postpartum health can be really important. If you have been told that you have subclinical or borderline hypothyroidism, yet you wish to fall pregnant, then your doctor really should start you on thyroid hormone replacement medication, or at least increase it so that you are well within range to improve your chances of a healthy conception and reduce the risk of miscarriages. People with subclinical hypothyroidism falling pregnant have a much higher risk of miscarriage compared to people with normal thyroid function. So please do make your doctor aware if you're planning to fall pregnant, and make this plan ahead of time where possible. Get your thyroid levels optimized. The areas I found to be key were, first of all, optimizing those thyroid hormone levels. We just can't talk about it often enough. Not just testing TSH, not just having TSH in range. We need to actually check those thyroid hormone levels, free T3, free T4, and if at all possible, thyroid antibodies too. And then only try to conceive again when they are all optimized, if at all possible. As of 2024, NICE guidelines state, and it's here on the screen so you can read it with me, if symptoms persist, consider adjusting the dose of LT4, that's your levothyroxine, for example, further to achieve optimal well-being, taking care to avoid overtreatment. If symptoms of hypothyroidism persist, consider adjusting the dose of LT4 further to achieve optimal well-being, taking care to avoid overtreatment. This is based on the fact that some people may still have troublesome symptoms, even with TSH levels in the reference range, and changing LT4 dose may improve symptoms for some people. And there's another quote there that you can read if you want to. So therefore, we can see that the importance in optimized TSH levels here, but also we don't want to be ignoring free T3, free T4, or thyroid antibodies either. Optimizing all where possible will optimize your fertility and your body holding on to a pregnancy as much as possible. What do you do if you find that your current thyroid medication is not optimizing all of these thyroid hormone levels? Well, it is at this point that you may wish to explore other options, because T4 only medications, in particular, such as levothyroxine and Synthroid, while they work for many people, in some of us that do not convert these well to active thyroid hormone, it can leave free T4 levels below optimal. So some people, such as myself, do benefit from being on T3 containing medications. A note on these for trying to conceive and pregnancy, though. Many mainstream doctors are not comfortable prescribing and dosing T3 thyroid medications in pregnancy. NDTs, such as Armour Thyroid, which is what I take, and synthetic T3 are not widely used or widely recommended for pregnancy, particularly on the NHS here in the UK. Being on T3 only medication during pregnancy is not usually recommended, in particular because of a lack of T4 for the fetus, which is the only thyroid hormone that crosses the placenta during development. So whether a doctor keeps you on T3 only or NDT medications really is at their discretion. I had 2 healthy babies and healthy pregnancies on Armour Thyroid. In my first pregnancy, I was just on Armour Thyroid, and in my second, I was on Armour Thyroid and levothyroxine. Less concerned with those because Armour Thyroid does also contain the T4, but it's much more unusual for you to be on T3 only throughout pregnancy because, like I say, the growing baby needs T4 from you until they've got their own thyroid gland. Research has not yet been conducted on pregnant women taking anything other than T4 medications in pregnancy, so therefore many doctors are just not comfortable, and we also don't have the guidelines there. So you may wish to seek a specialist or a private doctor if you wish to stay on anything other than T4 throughout pregnancy, and I would encourage you to do that if that is at all possible. Whereas I don't feel comfortable that T3 only thyroid medication is safe for pregnancy, it's just not something I'm confident about. I do feel that NDT and combination therapy of T4 and T3 can be safely used by a doctor who knows what they are doing and knows how to test and monitor these closely and is following you closely throughout pregnancy. They will decide what is best based on your history and your personal health situation. Testing levels ideally every month throughout pregnancy. That's the full thyroid panel, and adjusting your dosage is key. So testing every month throughout pregnancy is going to catch if thyroid hormone levels suddenly change, and give plenty of time before those risks could start to increase if we're catching them early. There is a consensus that the growing baby does not actually need T3 in pregnancy, and that this is why T3 medications may also be unsuitable. But whereas the baby may only need T3, it's worth noting that the mother herself often needs enough T3 to feel well. So baby only really needs T4, but the T3 is often seen as being for mum. Because like myself, many people can't function without that T3 containing medication, and are willing to go back to T4 only because of this. If we don't feel well, we can't function, we can't work, and our mental health suffers. And throughout pregnancy, we often feel tired and strained enough. So again, there's so many considerations here on how to best manage your thyroid condition through pregnancy. There are many women around the world who have had successful pregnancies and healthy babies on levothyroxine and Synthroid, on liothyronine, T3 medications, and on NDTs such as Thyroid, myself included. I honestly believe that there is no one size fits all when it comes to managing thyroid conditions and choosing the right thyroid hormone replacement medication that suits you and that works for your body and resolve symptoms. And this is going to be the same throughout pregnancy as well. I think it's just worth bearing in mind that doctors can be a lot firmer on what they are and are not willing to do throughout pregnancy. And especially if you're referred to an endocrinologist or an obstetrician, as I was throughout pregnancy as well. But I think the key thing here is that our thyroid hormone levels need to be optimized. So we want to be checking all the tests every month if possible and focusing on that as our main concern, should we say. Okay. Optimizing thyroid hormone levels, as much as I've talked about it, is the most crucial piece of the puzzle, but not the only piece. My personal experiences and research also led me to understanding that other puzzle pieces can impact our fertility or chances of a healthy pregnancy too. So you can see some on the screen just here. Thyroid antibody levels, diet, such as food sensitivities, blood sugar balancing, consuming alcohol, caffeine, and more, types and frequencies of exercise, over-exercising, cardio, strength training before, during, after pregnancy, nutrient levels, supplements, which are key to this stage of life, such as iron, vitamin D, folate, and more. Your gut health, how to improve your gut health, your adrenal health, and looking after your nervous system, your cortisol levels, your stress, optimizing your sleep, all of these things form this big thyroid jigsaw puzzle that I talk about. And it can feel quite overwhelming because there's a lot there to consider. But your thyroid condition really can impact a lot, and a lot of other things really can go hand in hand with it, and may explain why you still feel unwell. So when it comes to looking at our fertility and pregnancy and postpartum health too, we want to consider all of these areas and look at how we can optimize all areas of our life, or other things that might be going on in our body that we've not picked up on yet. And of course, we cannot forget about men's fertility at this stage of our lives too. We can both be a part of a preconception plan, which is where you plan for your pregnancy sort of 6 to 12 months ahead of time, optimizing your health before you even try to fall pregnant, which in turn optimizes the quality of our eggs and sperm. It's worth knowing that if after trying to conceive with your thyroid condition for 12 months, if you've had no luck, then it is recommended to see a doctor for a fertility evaluation. This will include looking at a full thyroid screening as well as other things. Depending on your age, this may even be after 6 months of trying to conceive. So it is worth checking with your doctor what the guidelines are for this. Assistive reproductive technologies may be useful. This can include IUI, IVF, donor eggs, fertility drugs, egg and embryo freezing, and more. So it's worth just being aware of your options if you are finding it hard to fall pregnant naturally. Moving on to pregnancy with thyroid issues. Once pregnant, you really are not just advocating for yourself. And this is a key message that I like to get across. You're also now advocating for your unborn child and your family. So advocate for your thyroid levels, all of them, to be checked every month or so throughout pregnancy, and make sure that you write down those reminders about booking in for your appointments, booking in for your blood tests, Follow-ups, everything. Make it a priority and don't rely on others to do it for you. The NHS at the minute is stretched, and so throughout my pregnancies, I really utilised my Google Calendar to remind me when I would need another blood test, to pick up prescriptions, to check in with my midwife or GP or various appointments. I really utilise that to write everything down to keep on top of it. Use notes on your phone, a spreadsheet, whatever works for you, but make it your priority to really advocate for yours and your family's health. I think it's also worth being aware of how TSH can be more suppressed in pregnancy due to HCG, the pregnancy hormone that you've heard of. That is the hormone that pregnancy tests pick up on when you urinate on them. This is why test ranges change for pregnant women, because TSH can be suppressed by HCG. So ensure that any any ranges for your thyroid blood tests are altered during pregnancy, and that your doctor and the lab are using altered pregnancy ranges, because again, this will help to ensure that your thyroid medication is tweaked in the right way. Your doctor should be keen to keep your thyroid hormone levels within the adjusted pregnancy ranges in order to look after both you and your baby's health. So just don't be afraid to ask questions. Think of everything that you're advocating for. Don't be afraid to make a bit of a pest of yourself. It's normal, and in fact the case for most women, that an increase in their thyroid hormone replacement medication will be needed during pregnancy, as your body needs thyroid hormone more than ever at this time to sustain a pregnancy and grow baby. So as soon as you're pregnant, you want to get in with the doctor as soon as possible and see if your medication needs increasing straight away. It often does, and then there's often a blood test taken very soon after. Don't be surprised if your demand for thyroid hormone increases very quickly. That is quite normal. There's a lot going on in the first month of pregnancy, a lot of changes. However, for some types of thyroid medications, this may be different. So for example, in my first pregnancy on Thyroid, I didn't need any dosage changes at all until I was almost at the end of my pregnancy. I believe I was about 30 weeks before we needed a dosage adjustment. But compared to my second pregnancy, where I was on Thyroid and levothyroxine, it needed increasing about 3 times in the first few months alone. So this is why it's so important that we have our levels monitored closely, because each pregnancy is so different that we need that treatment and management to be individualized as well. Because my thyroid levels being checked so often, it meant that we could catch those drops and those changes very quickly. And that's why, again, I'm a big advocate of having those regular blood tests throughout pregnancy. Throughout pregnancy, you may also want to keep on top of those key nutrient levels and any supplements that you are taking. So keep in mind that your needs can change throughout pregnancy. You might find that you need more iron, for example, as the pregnancy progresses. It's not recommended to take any supplements without running them by your doctor first. So do have repeat blood tests to check how you're getting on with things and to reassess your needs. And coming to what is here on the screen now, as you can see, there are several factors that can make a pregnancy high risk. And this includes existing health issues like thyroid conditions, things that exist before or can develop during pregnancy. So these can include pre-existing health conditions like high blood pressure, PCOS, diabetes, kidney issues, autoimmune and thyroid issues, obesity, drug, alcohol, cigarette use, older mothers, younger mothers, pregnancies that contain more than one fetus or baby. There are many things there that can make your pregnancy high risk. And as you can see with thyroid issues, and this list has been pulled from the NHS website as well, thyroid issues are included there. So that includes both hypothyroidism and Hashimoto. So they are referred to as risk factors. However, if you have them, they won't automatically make your pregnancy high risk. Whether you are personally considered high risk will be decided on an individual basis, because as I said before, each pregnancy is different, each woman is different, and what may be considered a high risk to some may not be considered a high risk for another. In my first pregnancy, the GP did refer me to an obstetrician and endocrinologist, as he originally considered me to be higher risk. But after seeing them, that was withdrawn. They decided that my thyroid condition was actually quite simple to keep on top of, as it was. So if you're experiencing complications in your pregnancy, levels are fluctuating a lot, blood pressure concerns or other health issues, or if you're on privately prescribed or self-sourced thyroid medication, then again, these might be considered as risk factors. Now, predicting what a thyroid patient's health is going to be like during pregnancy and after giving birth is nigh on impossible, but it doesn't mean you can't be prepared. So whereas some women with hypothyroidism report feeling better when pregnant, for many others, they can feel worse or feel much worse after delivering their baby as well. And this may be because of those fluctuating hormones and things needing to settle after birth. Thyroid hormone can take anywhere from a few weeks to a few months to iron out in women who've just given birth and have hypothyroidism, so we also want to keep this in mind. And for some, they may benefit from working with, for example, a functional medicine practitioner, a naturopath, or another progressive practitioner to just address and keep in mind support for things like your lifestyle, adrenal health, stress, and that holistic support following birth. It's really common for Hashimoto's to come out of remission in the postpartum period, although it can then go back into remission soon after too. Really, if that happens, we just want to focus on supporting you as holistically as possible. And this did happen for me after giving birth as well. My Hashimoto's came out of remission for a few months and then came back under control again. Again, just due to all of those hormonal fluctuations. Maximising how much time the new parent with a thyroid issue gets to sleep, rest and recuperate will go a long way in getting their health back on track so that they can be as present a parent as possible. And then really by the year mark, when your baby is turning a year old, your levels should hopefully be settling back down, if not already settled. And if you're feeling unwell still by this point, then checking those important thyroid tests, making sure you're not just having TSH run, as well as those nutrient levels, vitamin D, B12, ferritin, they can really deplete after pregnancy and childbirth. So again, if you're having any hair loss that's continuing past a few months postpartum or muscle pains and fatigues, then we really want to be checking in on those as well, because low thyroid hormones and low ferritin is often behind those complaints. Keeping in mind as well adrenal health following pregnancy and childbirth. Pregnancy is a stress on the body. There are good stresses and bad stresses. Pregnancy in particular is a big stress. And although it happens every day, it's not to be downplayed how hard this can be on your body. Some people can experience migraines and headaches as they're recovering and their levels or their hormone levels are settling, as well as flare-ups in fatigue and other symptoms. I know that I personally try to avoid comparing myself to other mums who perhaps didn't have chronic health conditions like myself, who seem to be doing a lot more running around with their babies than me, going to lots of baby classes and getting out and about a lot more, when instead I quite enjoyed sitting in the garden in the sunshine, soaking up simple times with my son or going for short walks instead of being out for whole days, which would deplete my thyroid restricted energy levels even more so. I do like to share the message that we often feel the pressure to lose extra baby weight after giving birth to, and I could go on to say a lot about this as someone who has previous history of eating disorders, and I've had a real battle with body image and weight myself before. But I'm just going to say, I don't understand how we can go from celebrating a woman's body for growing, nurturing, and birthing a whole human life to berating her body to shrink back down and look as if it never did any of those things as soon as the baby is born. Although it may be tempting to jump into a new weight loss plan as soon as possible, I would urge you to focus on giving your body recuperation and nutrition and the care that it needs instead. Because doing this will help with your breast milk production, which can be impacted with hypothyroidism, as well as give you the energy and hopefully good mental health to kickstart your postpartum period as well. Our bodies usually settle to where they're happy, so they often lose any excess weight with optimized thyroid hormone levels and a balanced diet and regular exercise and focusing on those lifestyle components anyway. But your body will be individual. I encourage you to think about adopting that healthy lifestyle and focusing on how you feel over your weight alone, because your child will want you to be a present, mentally resilient parent, and that should be your priority. I know I wanted to be present for my children. I didn't want to be focusing on constantly dieting and worrying about the way I look, and it's something that I'm quite passionate about in terms of looking after new mothers' mental health in that way. A quick note on breastfeeding before we finish. Hypothyroidism can impact your milk supply, so we need to keep on top of keeping your thyroid hormone levels optimized. I know I've said this many times, but it's really important. Keeping them optimized for breastfeeding as well. I go more in depth about navigating thyroid health, symptoms, and more as a new parent in the book, the Positive Thyroid Pregnancy book. But I hope this presentation has given you a good foundation to start with. I have a lot more to say on this, and I could have talked for another hour or two at least. But I'm hoping that this presentation has at least given you a good foundation if you're at this stage in your life on where to go. And if you do want more, then you can check out the Positive Thyroid Pregnancy book. So you can see all 4 of my books there. So Be Your Own Thyroid Advocate, I wrote in 2018. In 2019, I wrote You, Me and Hypothyroidism. I wrote that with my husband about navigating relationships. We've got Thyroid Superhero there, which is a children's book all about understanding their grown-ups hypothyroidism, and then the Positive Thyroid Pregnancy book there on the left with the amalgamation of the butterfly, of thyroid symbol and pregnancy test. So to round us up, looking after your thyroid health and knowing what you can do in that preconception stage as well as during and after is really important. The associated risks of improperly managed thyroid conditions can include complications like miscarriage, stillbirth, preeclampsia, anemia, and many more. So we want to understand what we can do to look after ourselves in this time and advocate for ourselves. And I'm hoping that this presentation gave you a good starting point with that. Now, with these risks, it is important to understand that the vast majority of pregnant women with thyroid conditions do go on to have very normal and uneventful pregnancies. And I do want us to remember that as well. It's not all doom and gloom, and that's not what I wanted to do with this pregnancy. So what I would love to do with the Positive Thyroid Pregnancy book is to arm more of you with the knowledge that I gained, that you need as well to feel empowered in this life stage, and to understand just how amazing your body can be, and how to navigate this with a thyroid condition, because thyroid issues really are not an easy ride. My books are a great tool to help you navigate a new diagnosis, piece together the reasons why you still feel unwell, whether you are in this trying to conceive parenting stage as I am, whether you are newly diagnosed and would benefit from some of my other books that I've written. They piece together the puzzle pieces and arm us with the information that we need to get better. But I do feel it's also important to put this information out there in many different formats so that you can access it on where you are, and I can meet you where you are too. And so this does also include my website, which is here on screen, theinvisiblehypothyroidism.com. On there, I've got hundreds of website articles covering all topics, so hundreds. So I'm talking diet, exercise, all the many symptoms, everything, work life, social life, relationships, all about hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's, and those things. So do check out theinvisiblehypothyroidism.com. You can pop any keywords into the search bar and see if I've got an article on it. I've also got social media and my email newsletters, and I'm very active across events like this. You'll also find me on Thyroid Podcasts. So you have many options available when it comes to educating yourself and those around you on your thyroid condition and how it impacts you. I really hope that my experiences of pregnancy and pregnancy loss with thyroid issues can at the very least help others and help to prevent as many losses or pregnancy complications as possible. And do reach out if you've got any questions, if you'd like to ask me anything else. I'm on social media, so you can see there I'm on Instagram and Facebook. That's where I'm most active on those two. You can pop me any questions over there, and if you go to Substack as well, that's where my email newsletter is held. I publish an email newsletter every week that includes a deep dive into a certain topic that I want to raise awareness on with thyroid issues, as well as a roundup of everything else that's going on in the thyroid world, such as these amazing online events here. So do reach out, check out my books, shown there in the picture, and let me know if you have any other questions. But thank you so much for Thyroid UK for hosting this event and for having me be a part of it. I hope to see you all again soon.
Okay, so hopefully you found that really interesting. A lot of it for me I already knew, but one thing that I do try and get people to do is to, if they're even thinking about getting pregnant, just to check their health in lots of ways. Get a thyroid test done before you start to try and get pregnant. And also just make sure that as soon as you are pregnant, get an appointment with your GP to ensure that your levels, your thyroid levels, are optimized. So someone says that they also had a miscarriage, which was so hard to accept. Oh, homeopathy helped. That's interesting. And someone else, I know it's so upsetting to hear this, how many people with subclinical or thyroid, full-on thyroid disease have miscarriages. And, it does make me wonder if you're diagnosed, whether you're just undertreated or that you need T3. If you're writing your own book, do let me know when you've finished. So Elizabeth. Has anyone considered freezing their eggs, or has anyone done research into this more, and if it's worth it with hypothyroidism? I can't answer that question. Also need to put pressure on the NICE guidelines, as they are not necessarily helpful. Yeah, I agree. I think NICE are changing the way that they do their guidelines, though. I think that they're now looking more into patient experiences as well as research and cost. I think a lot of the time cost comes into it, unfortunately. Any special experience or interaction with COVID-19 vaccination? We do know that the vaccination does impact the thyroid. I think more hyperthyroidism. We've got a position statement on our website about COVID-19 and the COVID-19 vaccination. So if you want to pop there and have a look. Yeah, very good presentation. I have a daughter with hypothyroidism and wants a family. Just spread the word, really. I'm 71 now, so it's not going to affect me in that way. But, my son's wife, possibly, and other people, you might have friends and family who are younger that are thinking about starting a family. Do let them know. I just want to say Rachel's website is full of useful info on all things. It was fantastic help when I was being dismissed by the NHS GPs. Yes, I agree. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed the talk, Alexandra. People are always told their thyroid levels are fine, but they are not if they only test TSH and T4. In my area, we're lucky enough that they do test TSH and T4. In a lot of areas further north of the country, I'm not sure why, they only do TSH. They don't even do a T4. And nowhere can you get a T3, really, unless you visit an endocrinologist. But I know that someone who's actually going through the volunteer process for us sent me some information on how she managed to get T3. And I'm going to incorporate that into our live-ironing document as soon as I can. So how do we know that NICE guidelines are actually really useful? I don't know how to answer that question. I think they're useful in some instances, but for subclinical hypothyroidism, there is something there that is helpful for some people, because doctors are allowed to give a trial of levothyroxine if they've had levels with a TSH borderline or just over the range. I think it's 3 months apart twice, then they can give a trial. But actually, it can also just be down to the GP, what his feeling is. And if he's helped somebody before in that situation who he's seen get better, then he's more likely to do the same for the next patient and the next patient. I'm hoping that, the younger doctors might be a bit more open-minded. I agree. There are some people where our numbers look subclinical, but we are actually full-blown hypothyroid. I think that was me. My levels were smack bang in the middle. They weren't even subclinical, but I got better on levothyroxine after my operation. So, yes, can confirm in York it's only TSH. Sorry, I missed the last part and had a question about starting a family, if you can help. What I'll do is, I think somewhere in this chat, I don't know if it's in here actually, but I'll make sure that everybody gets the correct emails addresses so that people can email, or email me at enquiries@thyroiduk.org, and then I'll forward them on. In Newcastle, they test TSH and T4. I only had TSH tested, but I'm sure I have hypothyroidism. There is also, you know, it's not as common, but there is also subclinical hyperthyroidism. And I have managed to help some people who come to me and say, I'm sure I've got hyperthyroidism. But it's not as clear cut as subclinical hypo, to be honest. But there is information online about subclinical hyperthyroidism. Some research, not a lot. Yeah, a lot of people buy and test their own bloods now. Unfortunately, that's what I have to suggest, because if your GP can't do all 3 tests, there's no other way for you to get it unless you purchase your own. And it's a sad situation that you have to do that. But, you know, we do think it's a good way of finding out exactly what your issue is. I know I test my levels, not only of thyroid levels, but my B12, my vitamin D, my ferritin, every 6 months, just to make sure that everything's on top. And I was poorly a little while back, about 3 months ago. Oh my God, the pains, my back pain, my bone pain was horrendous. And then I'd realised that I'd run out of my vitamin D and wasn't including it every day. So, and then I started taking it, and within about a month, those pains went. So it's really important. So,
Lynn?
Yeah?
Our next speaker's here.
Ah, who's here?
Our next speaker.
Hi, Lynn.
Ah, okay. Brilliant. Thank you.
Sorry for running a bit late.
No, that's fine. We were running late as well. Let me just introduce you. So our final speaker is, and excuse me if I'm saying this wrong, Dr. Gibran Yusuf.
Tim Yusuf's easier.
Yeah, Tim Yusuf, who is a consultant interventional radiologist at King's College Hospital. He's going to talk about microwave thyroid ablation for thyroid nodules, which he introduced into the UK. Many people have nodules and some need removing, like mine, but this way of removing nodules is so much less invasive for patients. And Heidi will put a link to the King's College Hospital NHS Foundation Trust article in the chat if you want to see that. So where are we? Here we are. Okay, I'll take the chat off and I'll take that off. Oh, no, that's not done it. Okay, thank you very much, Timothy. So the stage is all yours.
Lovely, thank you very much. So thank you for everyone for coming, and thank you for bearing with me, and for apologies again for my delay. I was just caught in another case. So I hope you can all hear me okay. I'll briefly give you a presentation about microwave thyroid ablation, just give you an idea of what it is. Hopefully that will then encourage you to think about it, tell friends and family about it as well. It's a procedure which it's not suitable for everyone, but it is certainly an option now, and it is something that I'm very proud, as Lynn mentioned, to introduce to the UK. So as I said, my name is Gibran Timothy Yusuf, but everyone calls me Tim. It's much easier. I work at King's College Hospital and the Princess Royal Hospital, which is a division of King's situated in Bromley. So the easiest way, I think, to divide this presentation up is to talk about all the big questions. So your 5 W's and an H. So your who, what, where, why, when, and how for microwave thyroid ablation. But why don't we restructure that? Because some of these categories go together. So the what and the where go together, the why, the who, the when go together, and the how, which is probably one of the key bits I think it's useful to let people know about today. So let's start with the what. Well, thyroid nodules are incredibly common. Now, the thing is, we don't scan everyone in the population. we scan only a relatively small percent of the population, we scan their necks, but it's thought as many as 60% of the population have some form of thyroid nodule. Now, that could be symptomatic or asymptomatic, and the majority are asymptomatic. And of the nodules, only a very, very small percentage of them are cancer. That said, a number of people still have symptoms from their nodules, just simply from the sheer size of it. That may distort the windpipe, distort the airway. It may distort the esophagus, the food pipe. It may also cause a bulge. We had the lady in our BBC story that happened, I think Lynn mentioned the link to, where her problem was being able to do up a shirt. So she couldn't do her job properly because she couldn't wear the right uniform. So the presentation really matters much to the individual. Similarly, we had someone who, to eat a steak, they had to turn their head to the left and push, which that's bothersome for her. Now, the way we need to categorize these nodules is on a 1 to 5 system, and we call it the U system. It's not the not recruiting to the American Army, the we need you classical signs. This is based on the British Thyroid Association, where 1 is a completely normal thyroid and 5 is a clearly cancerous nodule. And the important numbers you need to know: 2 is a benign nodule, 3 means we can't entirely say it's benign nodule, so we might need to sample it. So that's where the categorization comes in. Now, you have a choice of what to do with benign thyroid nodules because they're not cancerous. They may be very life impairing, but they're not necessarily life limiting, as opposed to when we think about cancer treatments, where we really need to deal with those and sort those out as much as we can as early as possible. So you've got the option for having conservative management, which means basically a watch and wait. It can be a slow process, it can be a long-term thing, and you're entering that watch and wait usually with the anticipation that at some point you'll have to choose, do you have a further procedure? Now, with surgical management, it's the traditional technique where there's a scar across the bottom of the neck and they remove either all or half of the thyroid. Now, obviously, if you remove all the thyroid, you remove the thyroid hormone. So you have hypothyroidism, and that may happen with half the thyroid as well. You've got the potential for nerve injury, you've got a hospital stay, and the mention of the scar as a rather large scar, usually across the bottom of the neck. These are often things that put people off and mean that because it's not life limiting, that sometimes people don't want to quite take that step yet. Now, the problem with that is that eventually you reach a crossroads and you have to say, it's not bothering me enough, or it is bothering me. What should I do? And it has to be time to make a decision. And this is where thermal ablation comes in. I say thermal because there is more than microwave ablation. Many of you may have heard of radio frequency ablation, which is an alternative means of using heat energy. There's also cryoablation, which is very much new in the world of ablation for thyroids and still being investigated, where it forms an ice ball. Or in fact, I haven't included it here, but there is laser ablation, which is on the horizon as well. Now, these types of ablations are typically done for cancer treatment. So you try and burn the nodule, you burn the area of the liver or kidney, for example, and you try and burn beyond it. However, with microwave thyroid ablation, you're trying to just destroy the symptoms. You're not trying to kill the nodule and remove it completely. You want an asymptomatic nodule, essentially. And that's the way the heat generates from the tip. And that chicken breast up there, that's a microwave probe. And you can see where it's cooked that focal area. And that's the sort of trolley we use for a microwave ablation. Now, the question I get asked a lot is, why should I do microwave or why should I do RFA, and which one's better and why? Well, they are ultimately quite similar, and what you feel tends to be quite similar. It's a needle in the neck, with movement around, which then allows you to burn the nodule and burn that. At least we aim for 70 to 90% of the nodule that we want to burn to try and cause a reduction in size. Now, when you do radio frequency ablation, they're generally longer procedures. There's more of a sensation of continuous popping and movement, because that's what happens. You burn a tiny bit, you move back, you burn a tiny bit, you move back, and it's very aptly named a moving shock technique. You need to have some pads attached to you for the conduction of the electricity. And the studies do suggest that it's a bit more painful than microwave. That said, neither procedure, I would say, is a a very painful procedure, but that's me talking as a doctor and as a doctor who's doing microablation rather than one that's a patient. What I can tell you is that we can treat larger nodules with microwave ablation. It's generally quicker. You get a lot less artifacts, so it's a bit easier to see what's going on. And you can be quite precise depending on what sort of power you use. So for that basis, I use a low energy because it tends to be a bit more precise and control the area. That said, radio frequency is also quite precise. As I said, the study suggests microwave is a bit less painful, and I can only tell you from our side that actually our patients tend not to have much pain associated, the sort of thing that paracetamol or ibuprofen deals with on its own. Now, the next question you probably want to ask is, where does this happen? Well, the good thing is this is happening around the globe. It's not just us. It really originated in the Far East, South Korea being the main place. But actually, you've got it happening in India. You've got it happening in Sri Lanka. You've got it happening in quite widely in Europe, including that's meant to be Italy and Spain specifically. Lithuania more recently. You've got it happening in South America. You've got it happening in the Middle East. You've got it happening, radio frequencies happening in the United States, and of course in the UK we've got it. The guidelines always back you up, so it's not just us going off on a random tangent thinking this is a good thing. Actually, this is something that is useful and backed up by European thyroid associations, by in the UK by NICE for microwave thyroid ablation and radiofrequency ablation. But also there's more recent international guidelines published in Europe as well as the Far East, with increasing appreciation that the very small cancers we may be able to treat with ablation. But as yet, this is not in UK guidelines. So the why, who, and when. So this really comes down to the person. So this is for the people who have reached that crossroads, who have decided, I've reached that point, I need something done because it's impairing my life enough, but I do not want surgery. And this is where microwave comes in, and it's best at dealing with single nodules, maybe a couple of nodules. What it's not great at is dealing with the large multinodular goiters that have hundreds of nodules all over the place, because you treat one at a time. You don't necessarily you don't aim to debulk the gland. You're aiming to treat a focal area. The difference of surgery is that one day you have a thyroid, after you've had the surgery, that's removed. So you've got an instant effect, so to speak. Obviously, the recovery is longer. It's a bit more tricky in terms of complications, but it's not treating a single focus. So what you really want is for a patient to say, this nodule right here is bothering me. I feel like it's pressing. I feel like that's in the way. I feel like I can see it. So that's the ideal sort of scenario. That said, we do certainly treat patients in a stepwise process. So if we need to, we treat them once, bring back later, treat again. And that's something we can do. As I said, it's when patients reach this crossroads, because many of them learn to live with symptoms, especially because it's non-cancerous, but life impairing is not to be forgotten. So we had a patient just today actually who's had recurrent A&E attendances because the thyroid bothers them. It's getting in the way of their daily living. So actually, these things are important. So when can you do it? Well, this is a really easy one. You have to be symptomatic from the nodule. It has to be bothering you. What we won't do is we won't treat a nodule which is not causing a problem. So we do have people who come in who say, I want it treated because I know it's there, as opposed to because it's causing a problem. So it is really quite critical that is the case. And that's why, I don't know if many of you remember the old CSI series and the Who Are You song that goes with it, but this is my acknowledgement to that. So who can have it? You've got to be able to fit our criteria of saying that ideally at the moment it's restricted to adult patients. You must be able to lie flat for the procedure and must be able to tolerate it under a local anesthetic, because we don't like to put people to sleep on the basis that we like to be able to talk to them and hear their voice so we know if we're causing any nerve injury or any problems. It must be at the moment under UK guidance a benign nodule, which we've proven with a fine needle aspiration, and ideally a single nodule, but multiple nodules don't entirely rule you out. Who's unsuitable? Well, it's really the exact opposite. So those that can't lie flat, those that are pregnant, we advise to wait, because pregnancy anyway can increase the size of nodules, but also it's not worth taking the additional risk at that particular time. And when you have extensive bilateral nodules, we tend not to treat nodules below the collarbone as well, because then if anything goes wrong, there's a risk of having to open the chest in a much bigger surgery. We don't treat asymptomatic nodules, and any nodules that are not definitively benign on the fine needle aspiration, guidance doesn't allow us to treat as yet. So this is just an example of us doing a thyroid ablation, just to give you an idea of what you're looking at. There's a patient's neck. You can see the probe within it, and you can see gentle movements within it, and we see it's talking to the patient throughout. The techniques we have, really, this is on the technical side. We can draw back and ablate or burn lines, which is called the moving shot technique, or we can burn one area, overlap, and then do another area. It's called an overlapping. What we tend to do is this thing called a fluid motion, where you can see that long white line is a needle within the nodule, and what we're doing is we're moving it as we ablate. And the idea of doing that is you're both disrupting it with the heat as well as the mechanical energy. And we've been getting some very good results from this. What you'll feel, now this is probably the bit that people most want to know. Your neck will feel a bit stretched, a bit stiff to start with. You may feel some pressure during the procedure as we push with the probe and with the needle. And you'll feel that stinging of the local anesthetic. Now, the needle itself to go in often takes a bit of a push and a bit of a burrow to get in, but it's not normally too uncomfortable. And most patients don't need any painkillers for this. In terms of the procedure, you'll feel warmth in the neck. It can go up towards the jaw, even cause a bit of a headache. When we pause the machine, it stops instantly. So we ask patients to tell us when it reaches a 7 out of 10. Generally, again, at that point, most people can absolutely fine. You can get some burns on the skin, so we ask people to tell us if it feels like it's on the skin, that they can feel a hot heat sensation. We do afterwards give a cold compress, which we keep on the neck for a couple of hours, and then we do an ultrasound before this is our particular protocol, we do an ultrasound before sending patients home. People tend to say they have some mild stiffness and mild neck swelling, so do expect a little bit of swelling afterwards and stiffness, but that tends to resolve within a few days. Some people can take a little bit longer, but certainly it doesn't usually inhibit significant daily activities. The complications that can happen, well, there are complications from every procedure, sadly, and they're all very low risk, but they are a risk. You can get the same sort of things as with a thyroidectomy, in the sense of you can get nerve injury, you can get infection, you can need to convert a minimally invasive procedure like this to a more invasive procedure where you actually do an emergency thyroidectomy. Those are all very rare, along with the idea of actually a mechanical injury to the esophagus or the airway, which is why we ask people to just stay nice and still through the procedure. And it is critical that that's why patients can lie flat as well. Skin burns are slightly more realistic. They can happen. Generally, the incision is no more than 1 centimeter, so the skin burn is a similar size if it happens. And they are superficial burns, but they are significantly better than having the large scar associated with thyroidectomy. Nodule rupture is one specific to ablation, where you can get some bleeding within the nodule and it can burst. You can get some bruising over the neck and chest down towards the upper chest. Again, it's quite rare, but it can happen within the first 60 days. If it ruptures towards the back, which is more rare, you can get some compression of your airway. Again, it may require emergency surgery or emergency admission. But all of this is done as a day case, indicating how safe and confident we are in it. So our patients are usually discharged about 3 to 4 hours afterwards. And that is quite a long follow-up. That is us taking extra precautions as opposed to just being a bit more cautious. So just to give you very briefly before I finish it, don't take too much more of your time. The procedure started in the UK in 2023 with us. We did, at this point, to 1 year follow-up, we had 27 patients. We had a quite large volume nodules, 56 mils. That's difficult to put into words, how much that is, but our largest nodule that was treated is 11 centimeters. The procedure itself for the burn time is about 20 minutes, but actually it's it's variable depending on the size, location, patient tolerance, etc. We allow about an hour per procedure. This is a quality of life questionnaire. So with the highest score being 115 and the lowest score being 23, when we started before the procedure, patients are around a 45. But actually, when at 1 year out, all our patients scored 23, which is the lowest possible score, and they are asymptomatic. So they've all improved greatly. Patients had some mild neck ache, it required some minimal analgesia, and only 2 required sedation at that time. This is just a patient who told us they had neck pain and they wanted the procedure because they thought they needed a neurosurgical procedure. And she had a bit of difficulty swallowing. This was before the procedure, and this is 3 months later. And you can see the marked reduction in size, and that's about 78% reduction in volume. And she didn't need the surgery anymore because her neck pain disappeared. And she's one of a number of patients that have had this sort of experience. And you can see the one that said the BBC story. Here's a variety of patients we've had over the time. We've followed it up. And one that I quite liked gave us a rundown of how it increased their activity, and saying they were able to then increase their active energy, their walking speed's gone up, and that was particularly important for them because before they were only able to walk 10 to 20 yards before feeling short of breath. And that's been a sustained result for them. We recently followed them up at 1 year, and they feel like they've still significantly improved because the nodule continues to shrink over this time. I should mention the results. You tend to see the biggest shrinkage at 3 months, but it's not like surgery where it's here today, gone tomorrow. So it is a gradual process, but it keeps shrinking even up to 2 years. So just to summarize, it's been a very positive experience. It's a safe procedure in our hands so far. It's been very highly effective, and we've had great patient satisfaction. Obviously, I'm very thankful to the team for helping us with the introduction and keeping this going and making it available to patients across the UK, which is what we're working on now. So thank you very much for listening. It's much appreciated. I am happy to take any questions as well.
Thank you, Tim. Let me just open up the chat and see if anybody's asked any. I can't see any at the moment. So I know my nodule was quite big, and it was on the side, and it was restricting my breathing a bit and my swallowing. But when I went to the hospital, when they took a sample and they let me know, it was inconclusive for cancer. So I had to have a hemithyroidectomy. But, you know, that was good because I was put onto thyroxine. I've been ill for 15 years previous to that with thyroid symptoms, but my levels were normal. So, but when I went, after I had the lump removed and they put me on levothyroxine, I started to get better. So for me, having the whole thing removed and being put onto levo was best for me. But I know a lot of people, it would be great if they didn't have to have the operation, because we know a lot of people who have thyroidectomy, where they didn't have symptoms before, then have symptoms of hypothyroidism, and it can be difficult to balance sometimes. So yeah, no, I think this is a great thing.
Absolutely. So it's not intended as a surgery replacement at all. It's an option.
Yeah.
And it's an option for those people in the middle ground, like you said, that have the potential to.
Yeah. No, we come across a lot of people that say to me, I don't want an operation. I don't want to have my thyroid removed because of this nodule. So I think I think a lot of people are going to be helped. So some people are making comments. On my last ultrasound, I was told I have multinodule goiters, but there was no swelling on the outside, which they said was rare. So sounds brilliant. Yeah, I guess I didn't think it was that rare if you had a nodule.
No, it's not. Yeah, you could have lots of small nodules, and they may not necessarily show on the inside. You may not feel them on the inside or notice them on the outside, but certainly we think nodules are a lot more common than we see, actually.
Yeah.
You know, but nodules could be a couple millimeters to 10 centimeters, so it depends. Quite variety.
So this person says, sounds brilliant. As someone with a U2 of 60 by 40 by 30 on the right lobe growing towards my esophagus, this is now on my horizon. Thank you very much for explaining it. So
thank you. I mean, this is the whole purpose of me here today. So I'm glad if we can help people that we can get the news out there.
Yeah. Thank you. Useful to learn about thyroid nodule surgery. Thanks so much, Dr. Tim. This was really informative and great to hear about this new option for patients. Are you the only hospital doing this procedure?
So at the moment, we as I said, we're the first, but actually I think Portsmouth and East Surrey have started.
Okay.
And I am slowly but surely getting around to train some more people, and obviously they've got to introduce it at their own trust and go through that sort of process. But there is certainly a lot of interest, an awful lot of interest.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, are you the trainer? Are you the sole trainer at the moment?
At the moment, yeah. Yeah. But it's good. I want this to be available everywhere. You know, it shouldn't be that someone has to come down from somewhere else to have it done. It should be available everywhere.
That's good. Thank you. My daughter and son both have nodules, both benign, and they are being monitored. Daughter in Spain and son in New Zealand. The guidelines seem different in other countries. That's usual, isn't it?
Unfortunately, yeah. I think Spain, I know certainly there are places in Spain doing it, particularly Madrid.
Oh, right.
And Europe were a little bit ahead of us, and South Korea ahead of them. So we've brought it to the UK relatively later, but I think so. It varies, and it does depend on the individual surgeons. It does depend on the individual nodules.
Yeah.
But it is New Zealand. I'm not entirely sure if it's available. I'm not sure. I haven't really heard of it much from there.
No. What brought you to this intervention? That's an interesting one.
Yeah, it's interesting. Thank you for the question. To be honest with you, I've worked on bringing this to the UK for 3 years. It was something I believed in, because I thought that this is something that I think has that potential to help people. Because my job as an interventional radiologist is I do a lot of minimally invasive procedures, and this was one thing where it felt like there's no other options. And I do ablations in other parts of the body, and the idea that it was available for the thyroid and it wasn't being used yet very much. I mean, radio frequency existed, but microwave, after a lot of research, a lot of delving into it, felt like the right way to go for me. And ultimately, I like helping people. And sometimes the most help you can offer people, and the most sort of sustained relationship, because I follow everyone up myself, the most you can develop that is by giving them an element of your life back. So for example, that lady who had difficulty on her walking holidays or couldn't go on her walking holidays, to get that message saying that she can, it's a really satisfying thing. So as cliche as it might be, it's for helping people.
No, I understand exactly. That's why I'm here. That's why I founded Thyroid UK. I think, it's good to do that. And someone's just said, God bless you, Dr. Tim. So glad we have you.
Thank you.
Oh, that's so sweet.
That's very kind.
Okay, I don't think, wait a minute. Do all nodules eventually need some kind of removal? I think you've already mentioned not necessarily.
Yeah, not necessarily at all, no. Some nodules, you might notice them when they're, I don't know, a centimetre or something, and they never need to be touched. They never need anything done if they don't bother you. Other nodules we're talking about benign nodules here. Other nodules, I've seen people who've had 6, 7, 10 centimetre nodules and said, it doesn't bother me. I'd rather not have anything done. And that's absolutely fine. It's a very individual thing.
My nodule just came up one morning, just looked in the mirror. I've not heard of that, but just all of a sudden it was there. So
a lot of people sort of notice it when they're, putting necklace on, doing a shirt up, shaving, etc. It's one of those things.
Yeah. So okay, I think that's all the questions. So thank you so much. That was really interesting.
Thank you. Apologies again for running a bit late.
No, don't worry, because we were running late that was my fault. I don't know Teams as well as I should. So there were some technical issues, which I did warn people about at the beginning, because I prefer Zoom. But I do need to get used to Teams a little bit more for these things. And it was a question of a little button that I hadn't clicked. So, okay, well, have a good rest of the day.
Thank you very much. All the best, everyone. Thank you for listening.
Bye. I hope that this has been really interesting for you. Thank you so much for coming. If you have enjoyed it, do please think about donating by just going to our homepage on our website. And there's a donate button at the top. You know, however small, it really does help. Oh, bless you. You are big, Lynn, in every way. Thank you for coming. And if you can possibly donate, because a lot of charities are struggling at the moment, and we are one of them. We really do need funds to keep going. And we don't want to close, as many charities are, because we want to keep doing things like this. You know, I've learned things today, and I've been doing this for 25 years. So hopefully you've all learned something on here. And I look forward to seeing you. If you're a member, we have regular get-togethers that you can join. And we do e-news. So if you want some e-news in between, that we do the e-news in between the magazine issues. So do join that, because you'll get some more information that we don't tend to put up on the website. So thank you. Oh, such lovely comments. We do have support groups. As long as there are some adults there, I think it should be okay, but let's have a chat. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. I hope to see you again soon sometime. I'm going to close now. Thank you. Take care. Have a good afternoon. Bye.